Chapter 923. The timid people had already started to cry. The scene of the holy flames burning was a fatal blow to their morale. How will we know if we don't try? Zhou said without hesitation. At such a time he had no choice but to make a desperate attempt. He could not care less. It was like forcing a duck onto a perch. Even for a man like Tang Tian who had enemies under the heavens, upon thinking about the countless holy flames in the sky being absorbed by a group of spirit generals, he could not help but feel his scalp go numb. Tang Tian initially thought that they were just nourishment for the spirit generals. But after that he realized that he had underestimated the great clan elder. The holy flames were continuously converting the energy into radiant energy, and to the disciples of the aristocratic families who trained in the inheritances of their families, it meant that the amount of energy they could control was gradually decreasing, which was similar to the Forbidden Hoop's reduction of energy activity. By changing the density of the air it could achieve the goal of confinement. By lowering the energy activity it would form a swamp effect. With the two effects stacked together, it was extremely effective against sacred Saint Galaxy martial artists. When Xia heard that, her eyes lit up. What do you think? Tang Tian finally understood the source of the strange familiarity, the Forbidden Hoop. Tang Tian and the rest also felt the immense pressure. As time passed, the situation would become more and more disadvantageous to them. If they were unable to successfully decipher the secret of the holy flames before the great clan elder's spirit general hatched, they would be finished. Tang Tian did not have the time to think about all of that. He was in trouble. He had a rough understanding of the Saint Continent system, but he realized that he was helpless. The great clan elder's system was superior to the Forbidden Hoop, in that the amount of holy flames used was too terrifying. Without caring about it, he shouted, "Then let me try. I can't do it alone. Two people come and help me." Previously, when he fought with the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, Tang Tian had specially researched on the holy flames. The holy flames were flames that were birthed from pure radiant energy, and in Temple there were strict requirements for the training of the holy flames. This was the Saint Continent where Temple was located, the center of the entire Honorable Martial Continent, and the majority of the citizens were related to Temple, thus the majority of them were able to train in the holy flames. In any of the other continents, the holy flame was definitely not as widespread. The member called Xiao Yao smiled bitterly and said, "Boss, I cultivate the law of light, but it has nothing to do with the law of light." In reality, the alliance of the big clans no longer had a chance to turn the tables. They did not expect that before they could come up with a plan, their enemies were already scheming on how to wipe them out. The densely packed holy flames continued to convert the energy in the air into radiant energy. As the available energy in the air became thinner and thinner, Sadra and his army's losses increased rapidly. They felt like fish out of water, suffocating. The energy barrier that was usually easy was now unusually heavy and difficult. Every fiery pillar's position had been carefully chosen, which meant that Temple had planned this from the start. Alright, what was he worrying about? He was actually worried about the Great Elder? The 500 over holy flames from the fiery pillars resonated at the same time, producing an undulation that enveloped the entire Saint Continent, which was why it was able to form a fiery screen that enveloped the entire Saint Continent. The Forbidden Hoop was the first technique that caught Tang Tian's interest after he entered the Honorable Martial Continent. The Forbidden Hoop was created by Claudia's bodyguard leader, Hank. In the entire sacred Saint Galaxy, Hank's name was not well known, but the Forbidden Hoop that he created was extremely mystical, causing Tang Tian's eyes to light up. Tang Tian's research and usage of it was even more daring and creative. He was able to form a similar Forbidden Hoop around his body, isolating his own energy undulations. He used his own enlightenment on the Forbidden Hoop to appear and disappear unpredictably in the battlefield like a ghost. Could be said that the two were on completely different levels of power. But when Tang Tian linked the two together, he immediately realized that the two were similar. The great clan elder's only oversight was that he did not expect Tang Tian and his group to barge in. A lunatic was not scary, but a strict and meticulous lunatic was scary. With Tang Tian's current strength, there were very few enemies that required him to use such a method to fight. Even in Temple, the number of people that could surpass him in strength could be counted with one's fingers. His research on the Forbidden Hoop was more of an interest in its creativity, and he rarely used it. So when he researched on the Pillars of Punishment, he did not even think about the Forbidden Hoop. Everyone's eyes turned to look at Xiaoyao and the rest. Of course, the Pillars of Punishment was much more complicated than the Forbidden Hoop. However, in a sense, some of the principles of the two were quite similar. With the experience of dismantling the Forbidden Hoop, Tang Tian quickly gained something. For example, he initially thought that the Forbidden Hoop was formed by the Pillars of Punishment and the holy flames in the sky, but now he changed his judgment. Furthermore, the might of the two were on completely different levels. When Tang Tian was trapped by the Forbidden Hoop, he was actually rather calm. Jizai did not care about anything else. I do not know what honorable martial laws are, but it definitely has a law. Could it be related to light laws? Xiaoyao, you practice the law of light, right? Even the dense holy flames floating in the sky was an important part of the Forbidden Hoop, and was the great clan elder's hidden killing move. Such a huge and cold-blooded plan was not an impulsive move, but a meticulous plan that was closely linked. The great clan elder's ruthless and cold-blooded nature caused people to tremble in fear. Because of the undulations produced by the fiery pillar's resonance, the holy flames spewed into the sky, but did not dissipate, but flowed along the sky, forming a layer of fiery screen. It was not difficult to form such a fiery screen. As long as an army was not weak, they would be able to do it. But to envelop an entire continent, and a continent as large as the Saint Continent, Tang Tian had never heard of such a thing before. If not for being trapped inside, Tang Tian would have long turned and run. The might of the golden holy flames was not ordinary, and if it was a one-on-one fight, no matter how powerful the holy flames were, Tang Tian would not be worried. But the holy flames in front of him were formed from the lives of the entire Saint Continent, and were as vast as the ocean. No one could resist against so many holy flames. It was like an ocean, and with a wave Tang Tian would be annihilated. And if the holy flames were to explode, the entire Saint Continent would be annihilated. Its might was something that even the sea of energy, which could contain all living things, was unable to contain. The sea of energy would be ignited, and the uncontrollable explosion and energy would form an unprecedented energy tsunami that would sweep through the entire honorable martial continent. In the end, no one knew how many continents would be able to escape this calamity. Just the thought of such a scene was enough to make one's hair stand. He had tested out the might of the Pillars of Punishment, and the terrifying pressure that came from the sky caused him to feel fear. It was extremely rare to find a power that could cause Tang Tian to feel fear. The Forbidden Hoop was extremely creative, but in terms of the essence of the power, it was not worthy of praise. Tang Tian could not help but admire the great clan elder. The Saint Continent was a vast region, and to completely seal it off, the position of the 500 over fiery pillars was extremely crucial. He had to admit that the concept was flawless. It was complete and tight. In the Saint Continent, the holy flames were viewed as the symbol of piety, and were viewed as the purest and most sacred power, and the battle techniques and killing techniques that revolved around the holy flames formed an extremely large system. Jizai immediately said, "Send 5 people. The holy flames are born from energy. Is it energy? Or is it a type of law?" The resonance between the holy flames. Jizai's situation was much better than Fu Jingji. He could still think. The other energies are decreasing, but the radiant energy is increasing. Can we use the radiant energy? When the quantity of something reaches a critical point, it will undergo a qualitative change. Furthermore, it is a high-level holy flame that is extremely dangerous. But the quantity of the holy flame is a qualitative change. The 500 over Pillars of Punishment was the skeleton of the Forbidden Hoop system, and also the foundation. Its most important use was not to provide holy flames, but to resonate. The God Armor Army was bitterly maintaining the energy barrier, but the pressure on everyone was increasing, causing the members to reveal signs of fatigue. Jizai saw that the situation was not good and clenched his teeth. "We can't continue like this. Do you have any ideas?" Fu Jingji was already gasping for breath. His talent and strength were much weaker than Jizai, and he was much older than Jizai, so he felt as though he was being sucked dry. The excessive consumption of law caused the blood and qi in his body to become restless, and he was starting to show signs of losing control. Tang Tian took a deep breath. He was starting to feel anxious. When was the last time I felt anxious? He had long forgotten about it. But today he truly felt anxious. Although he knew that the great clan elder would definitely not ignite the holy flames, but with such a vast amount of holy flames, even the great clan elder might not be able to control them. There were many imperfections between the fiery pillars and the fiery screen, but the vast amount of holy flames had completely drowned all of these imperfections. Tang Tian and the rest had brought about a change to the complete and rigorous plan. That was also why, from the moment the great clan elder made his move, he had firmly grasped the initiative in the battlefield. What kind of monster will the strength of the entire Saint Continent's citizens gather on a few hundred people? Tang Tian was unable to imagine it. Fu Jingji was startled. He was startled by Ji Zai's whimsical thoughts. Temple's forbidden hoop system was formed from 3 parts: the pillars of punishment, the holy flames flowing in the sky, and the holy flames floating in the air. Tang Tian suddenly realized that all of the problems had returned to the starting point: holy flames. The atmosphere in Mace Field Tradings was extremely tense. Xiao Yao knew that the situation was dire. The energy barrier required the power of laws to maintain, and if this continued, they would only be able to hold on for half an hour before the energy barrier would shatter, and everyone would be drowned by the holy flames. Their hearts trembled at the thought of being touched by the holy flames. In the sacred Saint Galaxy that was filled with dense and abundant energy, more than 90% of the people had never experienced the feeling of sparse energy before. The great clan elder's move could be said to be pulling out the firewood from under the cauldron. It struck their vitals, and they were completely unable to find a way to deal with it. 5 members who still had strength walked to Xiao Yao's side. The decrease in numbers caused the energy barrier to tremble, and the members who were maintaining the energy barrier felt their bodies becoming heavier, and the pressure on them increased. Tang Tian laughed at himself, but the nervousness in his heart was alleviated. He started to focus his attention once again, discarding all of the distracting thoughts. So be it, holy flames or holy flames, I have seen many strange and bizarre things, and there are many holy flames. Tang Tian fell into deep thought. He sat down beside the fiery pillar. Chapter 924. The holy flames in the sky resembled snowflakes, and also resembled dandelions that were blown by the wind. It was extremely beautiful. The 12 spirit generals bowed respectfully and walked out in a line. I have already prepared sufficient food for all of you. You can all eat your fill. The great clan elder's voice pierced through the holy flames, as though he was talking about something extremely normal. The great clan elder spoke loudly. Go enjoy the feast of the honorable martial saint, and enjoy the process of becoming a god. These few days will be unforgettable for all of you. Oh, my apologies, all of you no longer have the word forever. Sophie's body trembled involuntarily for some reason. The scene in front of her caused her to feel fear. The great clan elder nodded his head in satisfaction. He was extremely satisfied with the 12 spirit generals in front of him. The situation was much better than what he had imagined. The honorable martial banner of knights were extremely powerful, and their holy flames had been trained to a rather profound realm. Thus the success rate of conversion was much higher than what he had expected. He was completely in awe of the creator of the holy flame. The golden flames were extremely unique. Its most unique aspect was that it had many different forms, and under certain conditions the holy flame could change between different forms. For example, it could become extremely tyrannical or violent. But at certain times, its nature was extremely gentle and could heal injuries. But most of the time, it would display a gentle temperament. Sophie laughed at herself. I am truly living in this world. What qualifications does a spirit general have to say such words? In the end, the great clan elder did not forget to crack a joke. It showed that he was in a good mood. Honorable martial saint. The sea of energy outside the Saint Continent was filled with warships and merchant groups. Everyone was extremely anxious. They had heard of the fight between Temple and the prestigious families, but they never expected that the Saint Continent would actually be sealed. The golden holy flames were like terrifying beasts that occupied the estuary. But what made Dooku the most surprised was that it was not energy, nor was it laws. The battle in the desolate continent had ended, and no one in the honorable martial continent would think about the desolate corner. Without the battle, Dooku, who was relaxed, decided to move and head to the Saint Continent to support Tang Tian. Dooku was knowledgeable and tactful. When the holy bell rang, he guessed that Tang Tian would most likely head to the Saint Continent. Dooku was also extremely interested in the Saint Continent. Temple was their mortal enemy, and the Saint Continent was Temple's headquarters, thus he wanted to experience it. She stared blankly at the sky, feeling disgusted. However, Duke was not rash at all. He did not rush in impatiently. Instead, he approached the estuary and secretly studied the strange and terrifying golden flames. Charles was gone. The Knights of Light were gone. They did not recognize him. There was only one reason left for him to live in this world. Duke's eyes lit up. His individual strength was unparalleled, and as the only martial artist in the entire Sin domain who had gained enlightenment on a law domain, he had sufficient confidence and confidence. But there was nothing left, only the holy flame. You don't have to stay here. The great clan elder looked at her from within the flames. He felt that Sophie was not right today. He thought for a moment, then spoke warmly. Don't worry, they have just become spirit generals. Their foundations are still weak. For the time being, they will be led by you. You have to seize the time, don't let them catch up to you. They were your subordinates in the past. If they surpass you, don't cry. Dooku was a knowledgeable man, although it was his first time seeing the golden holy flame, but he could tell that it was not ordinary. When the last cocoon of light opened, a tall and sturdy spirit general slowly walked out. They would become the true core of the new temple, becoming his most loyal servants and subordinates. Thinking about that, he immediately decided to go in and investigate. In Dooku's heart, he felt that Tang Tian was a great benefactor to the entire Sin domain, and without Tang Tian, they would not be able to leave the Sin domain. Dooku was an upright man. He felt that he had received a favor from Tang Tian, and had always wanted to repay him. After that, when he chose to join Tang Tian's camp, it was partly because of that. Sophie did not speak anymore. She did not know what to say and only felt cold. He could not say that she was sad, just slightly cold. Charles was gone, and the Banner of Knights only had 12 people left. They had become spirit generals and looked at her as though she was a stranger. Why is it so cold? I am a spirit general. Maybe those things were never meant for me. So losing them is my fate? After that, Dooku became numb and tossed the question to the back of his mind, and did not mention anything about repaying Tang Tian. Dooku's mind moved and he set off in the night. Sophie, who was by the side, felt a chill down her spine. Ever since the first spirit general walked out of the cocoon of light, she had noticed something strange. Every single spirit general seemed to not recognize her, and no one looked at her. It was too abnormal. Every single one of them was personally chosen by her, and was personally groomed by her, and their relationship with her was extremely deep. But now when they looked at her, it was as though they were looking at air. When she walked out of temple, the traffic in temple had disappeared, and there was not a single person on the busy streets. Dang dang dang, the melodious sound of a bell came out from the depths of temple. It was temple's bell. In the past, as long as the bell rang, there would always be people who would raise their heads, their faces would be filled with reverence, and they would be praying devoutly. They don't recognize me, Sophie suddenly said. Every word of the great clan elder was filled with an unparalleled might, and in front of him the 12 spirit generals bowed their heads and listened. He walked to the great clan elder and bent down and said, "Great clan elder." There were some who could not wait any longer. They formed an alliance and modified a purely defensive worship, and wanted to rush into Saint Continent. This time they lasted longer than the previous time, but they were still incinerated by the holy flames and none of them survived. Everyone became even more anxious. Their families were all in the Saint Continent. What was the current situation in the Saint Continent? Were their families doing well? This time no one dared to rush in anymore. If only I could leave this world with Charles, Sophie thought silently. The comrades who had fought alongside her for so many years, when they walked out of the cocoon of light, the unfamiliar gazes in their eyes made her understand that her most precious thing had disappeared. He rushed to Saint Continent excitedly, and was shocked by the scene in front of him. The densely packed warships and merchant ships were extremely crowded. But when he noticed the holy flames at the estuary, his restless heart immediately calmed down. Especially when a few of the warships were incinerated, his face became even more gloomy. From today onwards, all of you are gods, temple's gods. All of you must remember, there is only one reason for your existence, and that is to listen to my orders. Give up all of your meaningless emotions, your laughable pity, and your cheap kindness. All of you must remember only the light is eternal. Outside of the light, all are enemies. The will of the light cannot be disobeyed. Any hesitation or impurity is blasphemy. We will build a brand new temple, an unprecedented world of light. No one can stop us. We will be eternal. It was a product that existed between energy and laws. It could transform between the two and at the same time possess both attributes. He quickly thought of another problem. How are Tang Tian and the rest doing inside? In the entire Sacred Saint Galaxy, There were very few people who could pose a threat to him. Even if he were to encounter any situation, he could just run. If he wanted to run, no one could catch him. But the scene before him made him realize that Tang Tian might be in danger, and he could no longer sit and watch. For a powerful martial artist at his level, he would never go against his own heart. Dooku immediately made the decision. Regardless of the price he had to pay, he had to ensure Tang Tian's safety. Even if he had to pay with his life, he would not hesitate. Maybe temple will be rebuilt, that's right, just like what the great clan elder said, it will be a new temple, a temple that has nothing to do with me. The 12 spirit generals bowed. All of the estuaries of the Saint Continent were blocked so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Ultimately, Dooku was a peerless martial artist who had gained enlightenment on law domains, and his understanding of laws and the myriad of things in the world far exceeded that of an ordinary person. He even boldly cut off a strand of holy flame and carefully studied it. Very quickly he had some gains. It was the first time he had encountered a flame like the holy flame, and he roughly understood the Tao inside. What a unique thing. From today onwards, all of you are the 12 honorable martial paladins of Temple. Her heart sank to the bottom. She maintained her silence and did not say a word. Walking in Temple, the once bustling temple was now empty. It was indescribably lonely and spacious. She stopped and looked at the empty temple and could not help but sigh. She could not understand, if there are no people left, then what's the point of rebuilding temple? All of the familiar faces in the past were no longer there. Her mood became gloomy. She quickened her footsteps. She did not want to stay any longer. When Dooku rushed over, he saw the entire scene. But what made Dooku feel helpless was that not only did they not help Tang Tian, but instead received Tang Tian's care, and felt that they owed him more and more favors. The great clan elder casually said, "They only need to remember what they need to remember. They will get to know each other in the future." The great clan elder was satisfied and in high spirits. Although the 12 spirit generals did not seem to be a lot, but they all retained their intellect and each of them could hold their own. They were the most elite honorable martial banner of knights when they were alive, and all of them had gone through layers and layers of selection. All of them were brimming with talent. Regardless of whether it was their individual strength or battle accomplishments, they were all outstanding. After transforming into spirit generals, their talents were preserved, but their strength would increase by over 10 times. At the start, there were still many warships that relied on the outstanding defense of the warships to charge in. But after more than 10 of the warships were incinerated, no one dared to charge in anymore. A few of them were still waiting for someone to come out and negotiate with them. Regardless of who had the upper hand, at least someone would come out and speak. But they waited for day and night, but no one came out to negotiate with them. "Yes," Sophie replied softly and walked out. Chapter 925. The white holy flame was a pure radiant energy. Another gray spot appeared on the god armor, and in the blink of an eye, the gray spot disappeared, revealing a hole. The light in Tang Tian's eyes dimmed down, the aura around him disappeared, the god armor crumbled, transforming into light spots and disappearing into the air. It was the first time Tang Tian's god armor crumbled on its own ever since he gained enlightenment on the god armor. Although it was only for a short period of time, but the consumption was huge, far exceeding Tang Tian's expectations. Even the god armor could not be maintained and directly crumbled in the air. But the great clan elder obviously did not do so. At the moment when the golden holy flame and the god armor's laws were destroyed, Tang Tian saw that inside the golden holy flame, there was a figure that clashed with the god armor's laws. At that moment Tang Tian had already determined that the holy flame was not a law, nor was it an energy form. Tang Tian's face was as white as paper, his fingertips trembled, his legs went soft, but his eyes were extremely clear, revealing an indescribable joy. It was completely destroyed. Tang Tian immediately realized that the unusualness was most likely the crux to breaking the holy flame. The laws of the gray spots were all destroyed. No, it was destroyed. The destruction of the holy flame and god armor's laws made every detail extremely clear. The golden holy flame continued to enlarge in his vision, and the golden fire snakes that came into contact with the surface of the god armor seemed to become extremely slow. The entire process seemed to be slow, but in truth it happened in an instant. Tang Tian squinted his eyes, his body moved slightly, and the holy flame that was flying towards him was deflected. Although it was very small, but Tang Tian was definitely not wrong. Seems like my god armor is being viewed as an enemy by the holy flame. Tang Tian's mind worked extremely quickly. It was natural for the holy flame to love energy, but the holy flame's hatred towards laws as well as its ability to destroy laws was surprising. But at that moment the power of the physique in Tang Tian's body started to circulate. The vast and boundless power of the physique surged into Tang Tian's brain, causing Tang Tian's eyes to become brighter and brighter, as though a bright light was being compressed to its limit. Even the gorgeous god equipment was overshadowed by the light released by Tang Tian's eyes. Holy flames were indeed not a law. What shocked Tang Tian the most was that the figure's shape was extremely similar to law threads. With a flick of his finger, the gray patch flew out. While it was still in the air, it melted at a speed that was hard to detect with the naked eye and completely disappeared. Tang Tian's brain was working faster and faster, and the light in his eyes was getting brighter and brighter, so bright that it was hard to look at him directly. Threads of mist seeped out of the Xian equipment. The mist rose. Tang Tian's flesh power, which was as vast as the sea, rumbled and surged madly into Tang Tian's brain. Under the Xian equipment, the bloody light on Tang Tian's neck exploded and was shockingly thick. If Tang Tian was awake at this moment, he would feel like he was in the middle of a storm, and his ears would be filled with majestic roars. He extended his finger and touched a strand of holy flame. He had never dared to recklessly use the power of the physique in his body. Tang Tian had suspicions in his mind, but he did not relax his vigilance towards his surroundings, as he suddenly noticed a strange phenomenon. All of the holy flames in a 10 radius around him suddenly flew towards him. Since the start, the holy flames that floated in the air had always been slow. Even the swallowing and spitting of the flames were slow, causing them to look extremely graceful. But the holy flames that flew towards Tang Tian had suddenly changed their slow speed. Like sharks that had smelled blood, they flew extremely quickly and aggressively. Up until now, Temple was truly too calm, and the strange calmness was too abnormal, causing people's hearts to jump. In the past, when Tang Tian heard about it from Melissa, he did not think much about it, but now that he had confirmed it, he understood how powerful the great clan elder was. Generally speaking, if one wanted to combine energy and laws together, they only needed to use the laws as the backbone, and the energy as the flesh and blood, to form an extremely stable structure. In a sense, Zhou and the rest were using energy in the same way, using laws as the backbone and absorbing energy as the flesh and blood. Time continued to flow, and Tang Tian knew that the longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. Without caring about anything else, he clenched his teeth and decided to use the stupidest and most dangerous method. The holy flames were not energy nor were they laws, but something that was in between. His mind trembled. What is that? The moment the holy flames touched his body, Tang Tian's eyes that seemed to be bottomless suddenly lit up with a bewitching light aura, and an indescribable aura suddenly exploded out without any warning. The air around him seemed to have congealed, and the holy flames that were dancing around him seemed to have entered glue, and their speed became sluggish. Tang Tian could not help but admit that the great clan elder was a true genius. Every time the golden fire serpent of the holy flames swallowed and spat, a pure radiant energy would scatter into the air like a rain of light. When the golden holy flames came into contact with Tang Tian's finger, an extremely tyrannical and scorching aura flowed through his finger and into his body. If it was any other time, Tang Tian would definitely use other methods to study it, for example disguising himself and entering temple to learn how to train in the holy flames. In truth, to a powerful martial artist at Tang Tian's level, regardless of what kind of power it was, they all reached the same goal. His understanding of the holy flames was just lacking a layer of paper. But it was this layer of paper that could be pierced through and enlightened. If not, he would be confused and could only look at the flowers in the fog. He finally had an even more crucial discovery. The power of the physique was completely different from energy. It was like water that was preserved in the depths of a sand dune. It was not a trickle but was mixed in the sand and became moist. When using the power of the physique, one had to hold back. If not, once the physique was dried up, it would be impossible to recover. In that moment, Tang Tian even had a misconception, as though the law threads were pouncing onto his own reflection. Like a god of war, Tang Tian, who was fully equipped, had an imposing aura that soared into the sky. The countless lines in his cold pupils flowed endlessly, and the power in his entire body was activated to the maximum. The holy flames that were revolving around Tang Tian suddenly lost interest in Tang Tian and scattered. The holy flames were an existence between energy and laws, or in other words, it was a unique combination of the two. Tang Tian maintained his dodging, but took the opportunity to slap at one of the holy flames. His gaze was locked onto the strand of holy flames in front of him. The golden flames were slowly swallowing and spitting out, like a pure and holy golden lotus. The floating golden holy flames seemed to have sunk into a net, and around them were faint lines that resembled a net. Tang Tian was extremely familiar with them, they were spatial law threads. Under the state of the god armor, Tang Tian was extremely sensitive to laws. He noticed that the space around the holy flames was sunken, as though it was a void and was extremely dark. Tang Tian's ice-cold state of mind was revolving at an unprecedented speed. All the images in his vision were being disintegrated at an astonishing speed. Tang Tian sensed danger. Taking a deep breath, Tang Tian activated his god armor. The gorgeous gold god armor seemed to be flowing on the surface of his body. Countless of bright and dark profound law patterns appeared and disappeared. The gold liquid was like a wriggling living creature. When the gold liquid completely covered Tang Tian's face, Tang Tian's eyes suddenly became cold and indifferent. At the moment Tang Tian's entire body was emitting an inhuman aura. He was extremely indifferent, as though he was a lifeless machine. The god armor formed from law threads was being absorbed by the holy flames, as though there was some deep hatred between them. How can the law threads be destroyed? At that moment time seemed to have slowed down. The holy flames burning on his fingertips were the closest, and Tang Tian could see it clearly. The void around the holy flames was distorting, as though it was a vortex. As long as any energy entered the area, it would be devoured. The layer of distorted dark void was only a thin layer, but the endless amount of energy was being sucked in. The law god armor on his fingertips made Tang Tian not move, and carefully felt the holy flames. In his vision the entire world had become completely different. It was Tang Tian's first time encountering such a situation. In the blink of the eye the holy flames extinguished, and the area on Tang Tian's fingertips that was covered by the god armor was contaminated, forming a gray patch. I've found the crux of the problem, I just need to follow this clue and find the answer. Facing the holy flames pouncing towards him, Tang Tian did not panic at all, and moved around within the 3m radius. He did not want to attract more holy flames and carefully controlled his movement. Although it was only a 3m radius, Tang Tian was still able to move with ease. Although the holy flames were fast, they were still lacking compared to Tang Tian. The holy flames danced around Tang Tian like a swarm of bees. It was a dazzling sight, but it was unable to touch the corner of Tang Tian's clothes. Tang Tian's indifferent eyes revealed a change for the first time. Tang Tian had seen ordinary holy flames before, and the white holy flames and the gold holy flames were two completely different things. The gold holy flames came from the great clan elder's hands. Before the great clan elder, in the history of temple, no one had ever been able to cultivate out the gold holy flames. And it was also from the great clan elder that they started to spread the holy flames, or in other words, the core power system of the holy flames started to form. What's going on? That is the crux of the destruction of the two. Tang Tian shook his head and threw all of the messy thoughts to the back of his mind. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. He placed his attention back on the pillars of punishment, but he never thought that after going around in circles, the crux of dealing with temple would still be the holy flames. The consecutive setbacks did not discourage him. How could a core force that could support an entire system be simple? Tang Tian quickly noticed another characteristic of the holy flames. The holy flames' ability to devour energy was extremely strong. Regardless of the attributes of the energy, they could devour it effortlessly, and transform it into pure radiant energy. If one were to say that energy was the holy flames' favorite food, then the holy flames were filled with hatred towards laws. The scene of the holy flames devouring energy did not exceed Tang Tian's imagination, but the destruction of laws was something that Tang Tian had never expected. Law threads were easily disrupted, but they were extremely difficult to destroy, much less being destroyed. Under the state of the god armor, the changes in laws could not escape his eyes, and the law threads at his fingertips were truly destroyed. Chapter 926. At that moment, everyone had absolute trust in Tang Tian. Tang Tian was moved, but he was not overly sentimental. Jizai, all of you hold on, I need some time. Tang Tian initially thought that the image was a unique law thread because the shape of the image was in the shape of a line, and was exactly the same as a law thread. Tang Tian was extremely familiar with law threads, and knew that the shape of the image was truly the shape of a law thread. In truth, Tang Tian also felt that it was a daring idea. A ball of gentle white light aura lit up from his palm. The ball of light grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, causing beads of perspiration to form all over his face, and very quickly the ball of light became the size of a millstone. Everyone in the trading organization watched anxiously. Such a huge ball of light contained an astonishing amount of energy, and if it were to explode, the consequences would be unthinkable. Although the idea was extremely risky, but in theory it had a high chance of success. Of course, with the hatred that the Holy Flame had towards Tang Tian's god armor, they had to think of other ways to carry out the plan. But in the battle of life and death, if they did not take any risks, then they would just have to wait for death. The benefits and risks would always be proportional. Furthermore, it was already a miracle that they could find a way. And it was all thanks to Tang Tian that they could use such a method. Jizai clenched his teeth and nodded. Master, rest assured. From a certain perspective, spirit generals were similar to the product of an intermediate state, a special state between life and death. To a spirit general, the holy flame was a great nourishment. Tang Tian did not have the habit of making things difficult for himself. Although time was tight, but Tang Tian was still well rested and did not rush to start. He knew that only when he was in the most perfect state would there be a chance of success, and if he did not have enough stamina, he would only make things worse. If it wasn't a misconception, then what was it? But very quickly Tang Tian rejected that guess. He carefully recalled the details that he had captured in that instant and had many new discoveries. The unique form bestowed it with a unique nature. After Tang Tian gave his orders, he did not speak anymore but sat down cross-legged. He needed time to recover his stamina. The exhaustion was too great and he still needed to use the god armor. Without stamina he would not be able to activate it. Tang Tian trusted his own senses. His intuition was extremely sharp, and was able to catch many details that even he himself did not notice, which had been proven in countless of battles. And the only obstacle for Xianxia and the rest to absorb the holy flame was the light attribute of the holy flame. The pure light energy was an extreme type of energy, and to spirit generals, it was a poison. Although the radiant energy within the holy flames had been turned ethereal, and its tyrannical and masculine nature had undergone a huge change, but it still retained many of the characteristics of the radiant energy. Xiao Yao's state of mind was calm and slowly of Xiao Tian. Moreover, during this period of rest he carefully deliberated over the specific ideas and details. Then hurry up and start. We don't have much time, Exen said without hesitation. The mysterious figure's shape truly resembled a law thread. The only difference was that it was a reflection. That's right, Tang Tian remembered the feeling clearly. Especially at the moment when the dotted lines and law threads clashed, the feeling was extremely obvious. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely think that they were seeing things. How can there be a reflection of law threads? Time ticked by, but Tang Tian's eyes remained closed and his body remained motionless. Tang Tian could imagine how overjoyed the great elder must have been when he discovered this strange structure. After persevering, Tang Tian finally understood why he felt that the dotted lines were like reflections of law threads. The dotted line was indeed a mysterious and indescribable state. Although the law threads were hard to see with the naked eye, but they were superimposed on the space, while the illusory figure was the exact opposite. They were below the space. Using carvings as an analogy, law threads were yang carvings while the dotted lines were yin carvings. Suddenly Xiao Yao spat out a mouthful of blood. He flew backwards as if he had been hit by a heavy hammer. His mind worked quickly. Xianxia and the rest were unable to endure the remnant radiant attribute in the holy flame, but he could. With his tyrannical physique, forget about the hollowed radiant energy. Even without the hollowed radiant energy he was not afraid. On this point even Dooku was unable to compare to him, showing how terrifying his physique was. The white light membrane that covered the energy barrier shattered like glass. If they did not have a terrifying physique, they would simply be seeking death. And if they did not have the god armor's tyrannical control over laws, they would similarly be seeking death. But the efficiency of absorbing the hollowed radiant energy in the air was too low. Temple's spirit generals could directly absorb the holy flames, while Xianxia and the rest could only absorb the thin hollowed radiant energy. thus the difference in their speed of growth was like heaven and earth. Because of that, they were in a dangerous situation. Towards unfamiliar energy, the more it was, the easier it was for problems to arise, and the density of the energy outside had already reached a terrifying level. It was Tang Tian's first time seeing the Yin carving law threads, and he was surprised. Very quickly, the white light extended to more than half of the energy barrier. Zhou and the rest revealed looks of joy. As long as the white light membrane enveloped the entire energy barrier, it would form a radiant energy barrier. Initially it was just a rough idea, but it had become more perfect. On the contrary, the radiant energy released by the holy flames had become much gentler after being hollowed out, and was much thinner than the holy flames. Not only would Xiaoran and the rest not be injured when absorbing it, they could even nourish themselves. Regardless of what they relied on at that moment, victory was the most important thing. Truly a genius. Tang Tian could not help but exclaim in admiration. The spirit generals that Temple transformed into were naturally extremely compatible with the radiant energy, thus they did not have any problems absorbing it. But for Xiaoran and the rest, it was extremely difficult to absorb, as the hollowed holy flames could possibly injure them. After thinking about it, Tang Tian felt that the great clan elder was truly a genius. The great clan elder should have projected laws into the energy, but the illusory image is not a true law, but an emulated law projected into the energy. Emulated laws and pure radiant energy actually formed a stable structure. It had to be said that the world was mysterious. Emulated laws were difficult to form in ordinary energy, but in the purest and most tyrannical radiant energy, they were able to stabilize. Xia replied without hesitation, "All right. I'm starting." Xiao Yao took a deep breath and reminded his teammates behind him. With that, he extended his palm out of the energy barrier and closed his eyes. The radiant energy outside the energy barrier was so abundant that it caused him to tremble in fear. The concentration of the radiant energy was much higher than what he had expected, and to him it was not a good thing. No wonder both parties would be destroyed when they collided. They were like yin and yang, representing two extremes. Upon collision they would naturally be destroyed. That was also why when Tang Tian activated his god armor, the holy flames were like sharks that had smelled blood and swarmed over, while Zhou and the rest were not affected. Because although Zhou and the rest were using laws, they were using the laws to move energy. In other words, Zhou and the rest's law threads were wrapped with a layer of flesh, which was energy. But Tang Tian's god armor was not wrapped with energy, and was naked in the air, naturally being targeted by the holy flames. Xiao Yao trained in light laws, and although light laws and radiant laws were only one word apart, there was a huge difference. However, the situation was extremely dangerous and he could only bite the bullet. She trusted Tang Tian unconditionally, and believed that Tang Tian would definitely not joke around in such a critical moment. But as long as she understood the theory and told Tang Tian, she would naturally be able to find a way. Luckily, the explosion that everyone was most worried about did not happen. The light regimen seemed to have melted, and the white light aura started to extend along the energy barrier that Zhou and the rest had erected, and the energy barrier seemed to be plated with a layer of white light. If such a vast amount of holy flames were to be absorbed, Tang Tian had no idea what kind of monsters would be created, as their numbers were truly too terrifying. Upon entering the energy barrier, Tang Tian immediately spoke up. There was no time for him to explain in detail. Every minute that he was slower would mean an additional minute of danger. When the great clan elder discovered the unique structure, he obviously did not stop his research. At Tang Tian's level, there were many things that he was lacking in understanding. Now that this layer of paper had been broken, Tang Tian could roughly guess the great clan elder's method. He stood at the edge of the energy barrier with his 5 teammates behind him. They stood in a defensive formation. All of them had gloomy expressions. The holy flames would pass through him, and the remnant radiant attribute in the holy flames could be absorbed by him or collected or expelled, and the rest would be absorbed by Xen and the rest. After understanding this point, Tang Tian's spirit was roused. I have an idea, but it requires some risk. The miraculous and stable structure contained astonishing changes. The emulated laws that had stabilized in the pure radiant energy started to affect the radiant energy itself. The originally tyrannical and pure radiant energy was gradually turning illusory, the energy attribute was weakening, and from there, it became a special product that was in between energy and laws. At that moment, Tang Tian finally understood why the great clan elder had placed all his hopes on the spirit general. It had to be said, under pressure one's potential would always be easily ignited. Tang Tian did not activate his god armor, but his mind worked much faster than usual. Tang Tian started to ponder, his thoughts were not fixed. The gold holy flame itself was an existence that defied common sense, and it was normal for it to have some weird things. Projection. The great clan elder's genius creativity was astonishing, but in terms of using laws, only Du Ku, who had gained enlightenment on law domain, could compare to Tang Tian. The difference was, Du Ku relied on his understanding of laws, while Tang Tian relied on his god armor. I can act as a transition, no a filter. Everyone's faces became ugly, and just at that moment, they saw Tang Tian returning, and heaved a sigh of relief. His teammates behind him were shocked and subconsciously caught hold of him. He had already fainted and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. The scene of the collision replayed in Tang Tian's mind over and over again. He was extremely focused. Chapter 927. If not for the great clan elder doing such a crazy and cruel thing, just by relying on the holy flame, the great clan elder's name would definitely go down in history. Tang Tian had always been thinking, what kind of law was the emulated law inside the holy flame? Although he had seen the emulated law inside the holy flame the moment the holy flame clashed with the god armor, but the entire process was too short, and he did not see what law it was. But he suddenly understood, it was the radiant law, the projected radiant law. It cannot be any other law, it can only be the radiant law. Tang Tian admired the great clan elder in his heart, but he did not know that he was also a freak in the eyes of others. The zero-energy body, the law-tempering body, the awakened god armor, the god armor army, they were all created by him. After seeing all sorts of strange powers, Tang Tian's mental fortitude and vision had long changed. While others were filled with fear towards the holy flame, he had already understood the theory behind the holy flame, and was full of praise for the holy flame and the great clan elder. Xia immediately replied with a sweet smile. Tang Tian, who had retracted his smile, became solemn once again. His gaze was focused on the holy flame floating in the sky. Everyone's safety was in his hands, and at the moment he was under immense pressure. They only had one chance, and he could only activate the god armor once. If he failed this time, he muttered in his heart to himself. Tang Tian felt Qia's gaze and thought that Qia was afraid, so he revealed a reassuring smile. He faced himself just like how he faced himself in the valley outside Starwind City. Qia's eyes were as bright as stars. She subconsciously held her breath. It had been a long time since he had a young lad who was like a god to himself. His strength was no longer the weak young lad of the past. He had started to look down on the world. He had started to move unhindered. He had started to act like a leader. He had started to act like a monarch. The moment the god armor was activated, the surrounding holy flames immediately flew over from all directions as though they had smelled blood. This point was suddenly enlightened, and many places in Tang Tian's mind also became clear. He had studied temples' ordinary holy flames before, and had some understanding of the radiant law. The radiant law was pure and tyrannical, but Tang Tian's body had been tempered by countless of laws. Yes, there was only admiration and no fear. Tang Tian closed his eyes. He could hear his pounding heart. It was so rapid, like a dense drum beat, shaking his whole body slightly numb. The mask on Tang Tian's face had long been melted by the god equipment law. His not-so-handsome face was like a magnet that firmly attracted her gaze. Compared to her memory of her big brother Tian from her childhood, this face now had less stubbornness and arrogance and more maturity and gentleness, but full of seriousness and determination. It was still exactly the same as before. Because they were from Temple, and the great clan elder's holy flame was developed from Temple's holy flame. But in the depths of his heart he was still that fearless youth. A feeling that he hadn't felt for a long time flowed into his body like a burning flame, igniting the desire that had been sleeping in his veins for a long time. An indescribable excitement coursed through every corner of his body like an electric current. The intense heartbeat that had made him nervous earlier was now like fuel that ignited his fighting spirit. Remove the energy barrier. Tang Tian heaved a sigh of relief. Luckily he had brought enough gold-grade spirit cards, all of which were prepared by Pai Pa due to the appearance of saints in Heaven's Road, as well as the prevalence of mechanical armies. The price of spirit cards had dropped drastically. Ursa Major constellation was currently rich and overbearing. They had an abundance of resources, and also had many gold-grade spirit cards. Pai Pa was meticulous. The last time Tang Tian returned to Three Spirit City, she had prepared many useful things for Tang Tian, the most important of which were the spirit cards, with over 100 gold-grade spirit cards. On the surface of Tang Tian's god armor, there was a thin layer of energy barrier, and it was this energy barrier that isolated the spirit chi of the god armor. Tang Tian stared at the holy flames not far away. After losing their target, the holy flames once again became slow and leisurely, like a jellyfish swimming in the ocean. But just as they were about to touch Tang Tian, their speed suddenly slowed down. They had lost their target. All of his anxiousness had been thrown to the 9 heavens, and he flew above the trading organization. The god armor was activated once again. The gold liquid flowed along the surface of his body, and Tang Tian's state of mind was once again immersed in the unique state of the god armor. Her mouth could not help but reveal a slight smile. Her bright eyes did not leave Tang Tian for even half a second. The only regret in her heart was that she was unable to help Big Brother Tian. She was an expert in commanding battles, and in terms of individual strength she was far from Tang Tian. She had never had the chance to command battles, and naturally did not have the chance to display her abilities. Facing the holy flames, he did not hold back at all. The holy flames made him sigh in admiration. The miraculous balance and mutual influence was filled with an incomparable beauty, and was a masterpiece in human history. But that was not the reason for him to be afraid. A total of 100 gold-grade spirit cards floated quietly around him, as though there was an invisible force restraining them. His next action surprised everyone. He threw out a spirit card. From the moment she was in danger, she had always been calm. She felt that there was nothing to worry about as long as Big Brother Tian was here. She did not know why she would have such a thought. Maybe it was because when they were young, Big Brother Tian had always acted as a hero and stood in front of her. She had always been full of confidence in Tang Tian, completely without any reason, just like how Tang Tian, who only knew fundamental martial techniques, was a joke in the academy, but she still felt that Big Brother Tian was very powerful. Just like how they did not have any vows of undying love, but she was always filled with hope and confidence for their future. It was just that unreasonable. The golden figure in the sky opened up his arms like a war god. There was no such thing as an invincible power in the world. Any power would have its own shortcomings and limitations. To project the laws into the energy and then use the carving laws to turn the energy into a void, fundamentally changing the nature of the energy. This had already broken away from the scope of techniques, just like how the holy flames could no longer become energy, nor could it become a law. It was a brand new, never-before-seen power, and that was the true power of the great clan elder. Creating a technique and creating a type of power, the two were on completely different levels. Tang Tian's orders could be said to be brazen, but Zhou and the rest did not hesitate and immediately removed the energy barrier. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at Tang Tian with curiosity and anticipation. Zhou and the rest naturally knew of their boss's abilities, but Xian, Xiaoran and the rest had never seen Tang Tian's true abilities. Previously at the Qiu Offense Institute, Tang Tian was about to go on a killing spree, but in the end, Xian stole the limelight, and everyone saw Xian's magnificent performance. It was a gold rank spirit card. It landed 10 in front of Tang Tian, and floated in the air unmoving. Tang Tian's movements were extremely fast, as rays of gold light shot out from his chest. In the blink of an eye, he was surrounded by spirit cards, all of which were gold-rank spirit cards. He instructed Xian and Xiaoran to stand below him and the spirit cards, and then got them to sit cross-legged. Tang Tian was speechless. That means I lost everything. I have to go back and thank Pai Pak, Tang Tian thought. But all of these regrets disappeared in the blink of an eye. As long as Big Brother Tian is here, godlike young lad. Including himself, everyone was going to die here. The Southern Alliance had lost the war and would be swallowed by Temple, Three Spirit City and Ursa Major Constellation's fate would also fall into the abyss. Everyone had gone through so many battles, everyone had persevered and struggled, and the results would all disappear with this loss. Both parties were fighting to the death. Although Tang Tian admired the great clan elder, but at the moment his mind was filled with thoughts on how to defeat the enemy. Even if I can't do it, dying together with Big Brother Tian is also a form of fortune. He was like a dragon that had been slumbering for 10,000 years, and had just been awoken and could not wait to display his will to the world. When everyone followed Tang Tian's orders and entered their positions, they all quietened down. Using all of their strength, igniting all of their passion without holding anything back, disregarding everything, they told themselves the answer they wanted. The great clan elder had absolute confidence in his holy flame, and all of his plans revolved around the holy flame. His confidence was not arrogance. It must be known that after promoting the holy flame for so many years, no one had ever discovered the secret of the holy flame. Regardless of whether it was the clan elders of Temple or the enemies of Temple, all of them thought that the holy flame was a secret technique of Temple, and that the great clan elders' training was the most profound. Go go go. When they were resting, Tang Tian had always been perfecting his thoughts. The densely packed gold-grade spirit cards floated around Tang Tian, flickering with gold light, like a golden ripple. The positions of the spirit cards had been meticulously arranged by Tang Tian, and not a single one touched the holy flame. Tang Tian opened his eyes, and in his abstruse eyes, there were flames blazing. The great clan elder would never have thought that there would actually be such a freak like Tang Tian in the world. The holified energy had to remain, and the virtual laws in the holy flame had to be removed. Godlike young lad. The only thing that could nourish spirit generals was the holified energy. Tang Tian had never seriously researched on spirit generals before, but he had many spirit generals by his side, and had his own understanding of spirit generals. In a sense, spirit generals were also existences that were holified. That was also why spirit generals were unable to directly absorb energy to strengthen themselves. Pray. A cold glint flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. All of the holy flames that resembled jellyfish were completely unaware that they had become prey in Tang Tian's eyes. It was as though a storm was rumbling in his heart, as though the sun was shining down on him, just like when he was young. When Tang Tian opened his eyes, the light aura of the energy barrier had dimmed, and was on the verge of collapse. Only half of the God Armor army was still standing. The exhausted members were lying on the ground, close to fainting. And Zhou and the rest who were bitterly holding on had reached their limits. Their faces were as pale as paper, their entire bodies were drenched in sweat, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Some of the members had blood stains at the corner of their mouths. Even Tang Tian's zero energy body was unable to compare to it, as his zero energy body was still within the realm of the power of the physique. On the other hand, Tang Tian's awakened God armor was somewhat interesting, but it was still not a completely new type of power. Ever since the God Armor army was formed, they had never been in such a sorry state. Chapter 928. But now, the number one bone in their body was telling them that it was going to be painful, and for them to bear with it, how could their expressions not change? Please allow me to be selfish. Ta Fei remained calm. I am unable to go against your orders, and regardless of the price, I am willing to pay. Just that, the blood and sins on my hands have caused me to lose the courage to continue living. The 12 spirit general knights all arrived in front of one of the pillars of punishment. In front of the fiery pillars that soared into the sky, they looked extremely small. As long as the tongues of flames swept over them, they would be engulfed, and not even ashes would be left. The great clan elder was silent. The flames suddenly stopped, and the atmosphere became extremely oppressive. His emotional wails were drowned out by the whistling of the flames. The great clan elder stared at his old partner, and after a long while he suddenly said, "You don't have to do this." The memories of his youth flashed past his eyes, causing Ta Fei's heart to feel warm. As per usual, he bowed solemnly. "Please allow Ta Fei to serve you one last time." With a slight sigh, the flames gradually split apart, and a skinny old man walked out from the flames. His dignified face was filled with sorrow. The great clan elder's appearance had always been a secret in Temple, and the people who had seen the great clan elder's true appearance were all decades ago, when the great clan elder was still young. After he gained power, he never revealed his true appearance. Every spirit general card released the aura of a spirit general. Spirit generals and holy flames were both products that were in between the two forms, so the two were able to fuse well. That was why the great clan elder placed all his hopes on the spirit generals. The holy flames would not reject the fusion with the spirit generals. As per usual, his hair was combed impeccably and his white robe was as clean as new. What's there to not need? Ta Fei chuckled and bowed. I do not have many years left to live. Please allow me to contribute my last bit of strength for you. Xiao Ran was much more calm. She only grabbed onto her zanbato tightly. Snow City, Mace Fields Trading Organization's sky. What a pity you will not be able to see this grand era. But Tang Tian had already found a way. In the distance, the great clan elder's gaze remained on Sophie. When he saw Sophie's hesitation, he snorted and the surrounding cold air started to leak out. Sophie's eyes were as clear as water. She looked at the golden ocean in front of her and sighed in her heart. Taffy, I'm right. I can definitely rebuild temple. I will rule the world. Just you wait, Taffy. Xian hurriedly lowered his head again. As expected, the golden light did not scatter evenly on the ground. Instead, it outlined an extremely complicated pattern on the ground. Xian exclaimed in surprise. The pattern on the ground seemed familiar to him, as though he had seen it somewhere before. This strange sense of familiarity disappeared in a flash. When he thought about it carefully, he couldn't remember anything. It was much easier for Temple's spirit generals to absorb the holy flames. The compatibility between the two was extremely high, and they could absorb it effortlessly. All of Temple's spirit generals were transformed from Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, and the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights had trained in the holy flames for decades, and the holy flames were like a part of their bodies. When they transformed into spirit generals, they retained this instinct. She leapt into the golden sea of holy flames. This fiery pillar was thicker and more robust than all the other fiery pillars, and the holy flames were even more ferocious. Within the flames, a blurry figure stared blankly at the thick pillar of fire. Sophie watched as they stepped into the surging holy flames. She sighed and without hesitation she stepped into the fiery pillar. Her body was submerged by the holy flames, and she did not know what she would look like after a few days. Do you still remember Charles? Do you still remember everyone? The golden flames suddenly danced wildly. The great clan elder scolded loudly, but after scolding he stopped and only whimpers remained in the flames. The golden flames stopped in front of Charles's grave. Only when he saw Sophie enter the fiery pillar did he turn and leave. Xian finally remembered what the familiar pattern was. In the past there were many energy houses in the army encampment. He had not figured out what the energy houses were used for, but he had already sensed that something was amiss and immediately shouted, Hey, I am actually a staff officer, staff officers are clerks. Clerks do not go to the front lines. Xian and Xiaoman looked at each other, and noticed the seriousness and shock in each other's eyes. The two of them had discussed about Tang Tian's strength before, and even if the two of them teamed up, they might not be able to defeat Tang Tian. The two of them were intelligent people. Tang Tian's performance was different from usual, which meant that the situation was more complicated, and the pressure that Tang Tian had to bear. But Xian and the rest were different. What was useful to Xian and the rest was the holified energy. And the law projection in the holy flames was like poison to them. If they were to forcefully absorb it, they might unknowingly become Temple's spirit generals. He caressed the tombstone and sighed, Child, rest well. An unprecedented and powerful temple was about to be born from his hands. A grand era was about to be born from his hands. The figure that stepped into the fiery pillar disappeared. The resolute and decisive words floated in the lonely wind. He firmly believed. Gradually more and more golden light scattered down. Xiaoman said softly, There are patterns on the ground. Xian and Xiaoman who were below looked up. They were extremely curious. They had never seen such methods before. Please take care, Ta Fei will not be able to serve you in the future. With temple as the center, the 15 kilometers radius of the ring area had 12 pillars of punishment scattered all around. Ta Fei's face revealed a warm smile. The golden holy flames surged out of his body and silently swallowed. From the start to the end he maintained his smile without any pain. When the last strand of soul was completely incinerated, the golden fiery pillar shot into the sky. Maybe it's better not to remember. The last bit of light behind her disappeared and she was completely immersed in the golden world. The flowing holy flames emitted a divine aura. For some reason, the divine aura was extremely warm and intimate, causing her body to uncontrollably want to touch the golden holy flames, and uncontrollably want to jump into the warm embrace. It was as though there was a voice in the depths of her body that kept on telling her, as long as she gave her all to the warmth, all of her hesitation and confusion would be answered. All of her sorrow and disappointment would be redeemed. The great clan elder's voice was slightly emotional. You can become a spirit general, although the chances are not high, but at least there is a chance we can still fight side by side. He stared at the tombstone, the sorrowful aura enveloping the entire graveyard. With a gray translucent body, no one would have thought that the great clan elder who held the highest authority in temple was actually a spirit general. He suppressed the shock and suspicion in his heart. Just at that moment, Tang Tian's voice came out from above. It might be more painful later, you guys have to endure it. When the holy flames were swept into the golden ring formed by the gold spirit cards, they suddenly became joyful, and the frequency of the flames jumping became much faster. There was something in this region that attracted them. Furthermore, the two of them had seen Tang Tian's usual training, and his determination to risk his life made the two of them prostrate themselves in admiration. They had never heard Tang Tian complain about being tired or bitter, and in their hearts, Tang Tian was definitely the #1 tough nut to crack. Magatama, who had remained silent in the corner, raised her beautiful face. It was filled with shock as though she had seen something terrifying. Without any hesitation, they stepped into the fiery pillar at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, their bodies disappeared. Xin swallowed his saliva. He wanted to know how painful it was. He walked along the spacious and empty temple. His footsteps were firm. Every step was extremely heavy, causing sparks to fly out. The lonely echo did not make him hesitate or lament. He looked at the spacious and empty temple, and he could imagine how lively and prosperous it would be in the future. We are righteous. Tafei, are you doubting our cause? Only by sweeping away all the obstacles can we rebuild temple. Have you forgotten the oath we made when we were young? You said that you wanted to fight alongside me. But now you want to leave me? What is blood? What's the point of sin? Tafei laughed. That is why you are the great clan elder and I am Tafei. Suddenly, the great clan elder stretched out his leg and walked towards the fiery pillar. Night fell, but the Saint Continent was still as bright as day. The holy flames flowed in the sky, releasing a divine golden light aura that chased away the darkness. With that, he turned and left. The golden holy flames once again enveloped his body. He walked towards the center of temple, the altar in the center of temple, where his most loyal companion, his most reliable partner, clan elder Tafei stood. After a long time, only the flames remained. Xin acutely noticed that Tang Tian was different from usual. His voice was still Tang Tian's, but it was filled with indifference. They had interacted with Tang Tian for a long time and had a basic understanding of Tang Tian, and usually Tang Tian was a passionate person. The gold-grade spirit cards that floated in the air formed a golden ring. On top of the golden ring, Tang Tian opened up his arms as though he was hugging the sky. The new temple would rule the entire world. Regardless if it was the sacred Saint Galaxy or Heaven's Road, they would all belong to temple. A sigh came out from the flames, and only at this time would the great clan elder's voice have an additional tinge of old age and sorrow. He stood in front of the tomb for a long time until night fell. Suddenly, specks of golden light scattered down like golden snowflakes. It was extremely beautiful. Xian extended his palm out, attempting to catch the specks of light, but the specks of light slipped past his palm and fell to the ground. The specks of golden light fell to the ground, causing the ground to be dyed with a layer of faint golden light. The speed of the wind screen became faster and faster. It was like a gigantic vortex, producing a powerful suction force, causing the surrounding holy flames to be attracted towards it. The golden pattern beneath their feet once again erupted with light auras, as though they were standing in a golden vortex. The past was the past, what was lost, so what did it matter if they could be saved or not? That was the only reason left for him to live. The spirit cards beneath his feet released dazzling golden light. The congealed golden light seemed to have submerged Tang Tian's figure. The surrounding air started to change. They started to flow along the golden ring, and a faint wind screen formed around the golden ring. You coward! Coward! The flames danced wildly. The great clan elder was extremely agitated and hysterical. Chapter 929. Without hesitation, he immediately guided a hollowified energy sword aura from the wind screen towards the holy flame. The moment the sword aura struck the holy flame, it exploded into countless of energy pearls as though it was raining. Although Chia knew that Tang Tian had suffered a lot in the past few years, but hearing Sima Zhao's words, she still felt an indescribable pain in her heart. Chia immediately ignored Xian and the rest who were screaming. Her gaze was fixated on the golden figure above the tornado, and she could not shift her gaze away. Without a sound, the two were destroyed at the same time. Yes, it is the Whirlpool Sword Storm. Sima Xiao explained. It originates from the Whirlpool Sword's spirit tempering technique, and is a technique that uses sword concept to temper the martial spirit. In Tang Tian's hands, it flourished and the Whirlpool Sword became the Whirlpool Sword Storm, which Tang Tian trained in when he was in the Ursa Major constellation, and in the end used it to kill a saint. The hollowified energy in the air slowly converged towards the core of the emulated laws, and in the next moment, a strand of holy flame appeared in front of Tang Tian. The newly formed holy flame was much dimmer than before and the flames were much smaller. The most praiseworthy thing about the holy flame was its thought process and creativity, and not its techniques towards laws and energy. Since there was no way to separate the two, then he would destroy the balance between the two, using laws to break through the hollowified energy and collide with the emulated laws. When the two collided, it would cause them to be destroyed and Tang Tian would be able to obtain the pure hollowified energy. This was the most exhausting step, but it was also a step that could not be missed. Xin felt as though he was about to fly. The feeling was too satisfying, something he had never experienced before. Tang Tian immediately had the urge to cry. I can't continue like this. Of course it might not be easy, but it was ultimately a feasible method, and it was the only method that Tang Tian could think of in such a short period of time. As for the risks, Tang Tian could not be bothered about it at the moment. Tang Tian was surprised, but very quickly he thought about it. The sensitivity and powerful control of laws meant that he could do all sorts of experiments, and that was the most powerful aspect of the awakened god armor. All sorts of experiments and the relationship between the various laws were of great help to him in understanding the laws. This advantage was something that even Dooku, who had a law domain, could not achieve. If Dooku knew of the miraculous use of the awakened god armor, he would probably be drooling on the spot. When they heard the wails coming from inside, they immediately looked like they had expected it. But as the shrill cries and wails grew more and more mournful, they couldn't help but be alarmed and pale. What exactly is happening inside? What exactly did Master do to Xin and the others? Why were they in so much pain? But, even if it was Tang Tian, he could not do it. That was because his god equipment could control nomological threads, but it was useless against virtual nomological threads. Before this, Tang Tian had never seen emulated laws or hollowified energy. Sima Zhao's words were filled with awe and respect. The longer one interacted with Tang Tian, the harder it was for one to feel enmity towards him. Suddenly, the gold rank spirit card released a golden light, and the restless holy flames froze. But the real test was about to begin. When Chia heard that Tang Tian had trained in it before, his heart could not help but tremble. An extremely fine sound of something tearing through the air came out, but inside the water pillar, it was undetectable. Whirlpool Sword Storm? Chia turned and asked. Absorbing the hollowified energy from the ground, the wind screen started to change. The originally thin wind screen was now like a layer of water screen. Very few people train in the Whirlpool Sword's spirit tempering technique, because the cultivator needs to endure extreme pain, and is hailed as the cruelest tempering spirit technique. Who knew that Tang Tian would actually be able to create an even more terrifying Whirlpool Sword Storm? The pain is simply unimaginable, and is hailed as the limit of what a human can endure. For Tang Tian to be able to achieve what he has today, it is truly admirable. Very quickly his eyes lit up. Everyone had their suspicions and did not understand. Only Sima Xiao seemed to be in deep thoughts. His eyes suddenly lit up with a strange light aura, and he blurted out, "Whirlpool Sword Storm." This thought was the first to be rejected by Tang Tian. The Whirlpool Sword Storm's current size was already extremely huge. Its height had already reached 120 m, and its diameter had reached 50 m, like a small mountain. Such a gigantic being, the power it contained was extremely terrifying, and was not something he alone could contend against. If one day Tang Tian was able to understand the essence of laws, he would be able to create his own laws, and that was a domain that humans had never reached before. Alright, in truth Tang Tian was too busy to care about it. Tang Tian, who was in the state of the god armor, was extremely sensitive and instinctive towards data. He was extremely calm. According to the current growth rate of the two, in 10 minutes he would be submerged by the tide of holy flames, and at that time the critical point would appear and the first fish that escaped the net would appear. Chia revealed a look of reluctance. Her gaze was fixated on the wind screen vortex. He had missed out on an important detail. Upon the formation of the Whirlpool Sword Storm, It would have the ability to strengthen itself and would not be controlled by him. The current situation was like that. The whirlpool sword storm continued to expand, and its suction force was also increasing at an astonishing rate. Those were the most common words used by the citizens of the Ursa Major constellation to motivate their children. If Tang Tian knew about it, he would definitely cry. What do you mean by courage after being ashamed? Those fellows are obviously rejoicing in my misfortune, coming here every day to listen to my screams. It is simply for the sake of happiness. Exen did not notice that beneath his feet, he felt that it was somewhat familiar. It was like the ruins of an energy house that was releasing a faint light aura. The raindrops of hollowified energy smashed onto the ground and instantly seeped into the ground. The hollowified energy that seeped into the ground would then enter the windscreen. He only needed to draw in sword auras from the windscreen and use them to destroy the holy flames, then he could easily control the law threads and destroy the emulated laws. The amount of hollowified energy in the windscreen was endless, which meant that the number of sword auras were endless as well. With that, his speed of handling the holy flames would explosively increase to an astonishing level. Child, look at how even His Majesty has to pay such a huge price for his achievements. What qualifications do you have to be afraid of pain and fatigue? No matter how miserable it is, can it be more miserable than His Majesty? No matter how painful it is, can it be more painful than His Majesty? Do you know why our Ursa Major constellation's armies are invincible? Back then, the generals and soldiers under His Majesty would specially stand outside the windscreen and cry when they heard His Majesty's screams, and from then on, they became courageous and worked hard to become the invincible elites under His Majesty. Even with the help of the awakened god armor, it was still not an easy task. The amount of holy flames was truly too much, to the point that it made one's hair stand. He was extremely curious. How many spirit generals did the great clan elder prepare? With so many holy flames, how many spirit generals do I need to absorb them all? Tang Tian did not stop him but carefully observed the entire process. I need to make a change. Tang Tian was extremely clear on this point. Almost all of the spirit generals were struck. The sword auras formed from the hollowified energy all carried extremely cold and sharp auras, causing all of the spirit generals to feel as though they were about to be sliced apart. Compared to Tang Tian's sword tempest cyclone, the sword tempest cyclone formed from the hollowified energy was even more terrifying. After all, the energy density of the constellation that Tang Tian was in could not be compared to the Saint Continent. Furthermore, the hollowified energy was much stronger than ordinary energy. Xiao Ran, who was by the side, also felt comfortable, but when she saw Xian's wretched expression from the corner of her eyes, she almost raised her leg and kicked him as far away as she could. But after considering that it was a crucial moment, she endured and worked hard to absorb the hollowified energy. I need more law threads. Only with more law threads can I handle more holy flames. More law threads is not difficult. As long as Tang Tian relaxes his control over the god armor, he can control even more law threads. But the more law threads, the higher the requirement for control, and he was unable to control so many law threads at the same time. His efficiency was much higher than at the start, and the vast amount of holy flames allowed him to gain an abundance of experience. Currently, he could handle 500 strands of holy flames at the same time without any mistakes. But the continuous increase in speed did not make him happy at all, but instead caused him to feel the pressure that continued to increase. Alright, big brother Tian has experienced it before, then you guys better enjoy it. Do your best. She knew that Tang Tian definitely had some special method, but hearing their screams she could not help but pray in her heart, you guys better hold on. Tang Tian immediately realized that he had grasped the crux of the problem. Tang Tian seemed to have understood something. He guided the sword auras to strike the holy flames, and the process repeated itself. Tang Tian tried it a few times and looked at every single detail carefully and finally understood it. Countless sword auras formed from hollowified energy shot out from the windscreen. The law threads in Tang Tian's hands immediately attracted the attention of the holy flames, which initially floated above the gold spirit card, became restless. The sword auras were formed from hollowified energy, and when they struck the holy flames, as the two energies were of the same attribute, they did not dissipate. But the power of the sword auras caused the structures of both parties to shatter, and the hollowified energy of the holy flames and the emulated law core were separated. Tang Tian focused on controlling the rhythm, and when the number of holy flames surging in reached 100, the wind screen isolated the aura. The holy flames that were surging in lost their target, and their speed suddenly decreased, and they floated outside the wind screen like jellyfish. Tang Tian tried it again, and like the previous time, the emulated law core was exposed in the air, but this time Tang Tian controlled a law thread and struck the emulated law core. The law threads in Tang Tian's hands dimmed slightly, and a layer of energy appeared on their surface. Tang Tian's hands trembled, and the law threads that were enveloped in energy became taut, and like arrows, they pierced into the holy flames. Doesn't that mean I have to experience the Sword Tempest Cyclone again? Xian never thought that it was just the beginning. Decrease the speed of the Sword Tempest Cyclone? How can I reduce the consumption of energy? Then I can only increase the speed at which I handle the holy flames. But how can I increase the speed at which I handle the holy flames? Xian's mouth was wide open, his face revealing an expression of enjoyment. It felt so good, he felt that he had wasted the past 10,000 years. But he still retained a trace of consciousness. He did not forget Tang Tian's reminder. Could it be that son-in-law is reminding us that we are in pain from overeating? Oh my, that is truly unbearable. The energy enveloping the law threads quickly melted. The hollowified energy and energy were also mortal enemies. Right before the energy melted, the law threads touched the illusory figure in the center of the holy flames. As expected, it is as I thought. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. He had found a way. From this, Tang Tian's improvement could be seen. In the past, he could only use his god fists to gather law threads. But now he was able to use various methods to grab onto the law threads in the air. It was an all-round improvement. He felt that it was getting more and more strenuous, and he knew that his improvement could not keep up with the expansion of the Sword Tempest Cyclone. After being struck, the hollowified energy and sword auras of the holy flames had dissipated at the same time, but the emulated law core inside the holy flames was still intact. But without the protection of the hollowified energy, it was completely exposed in the air. It was a strand of gray mist that was thinner than a hair, and emitted an obscure aura. Without any sound, the emulated law and the law threads that pierced into the holy flames were instantly destroyed. The holy flames were like worms that had their bones removed, or like a candle that had its wick removed. It slowly dispersed. In the blink of the eye, the dispersed holy flames became transparent light spots. This was the true form of the hollowified energy without the emulated radiant law. The pure hollowified energy was transparent and colorless. Xiaoman's reaction was much faster than Xian, and at the same time she held her blade in front of her. But what happened next surprised her. The sword aura actually directly entered her blade, and the sharp intent caused her entire body to go numb. But because of the downpour inside the windscreen, no one noticed the change in the windscreen. With the addition of the hollowified energy, the windscreen became even more attractive to the holy flames, and the speed at which the holy flames surged in increased. Xian and the rest felt that if it was a downpour previously, it was as though they were being struck by a waterfall. Godlike young lad, behind these 6 words he was soaked with sweat and blood and endured a lot of pain and loneliness. You can't even be jealous of such a person. If there were no other external factors, the emulated law core would attract the hollowified energy, and they would once again form the holy flames. Tang Tian thought of another idea. Seems like it is not only about the number of law threads, but also the process of handling the holy flames. The stronger the Sword Tempest Cyclone, the more intense the pain and the more intense the wails. Inside the wind screen, 100 strands of holy flames dispersed, and above every gold-grade spirit card floated a strand of holy flame. The spirit card's gold light enveloped the holy flames, and the unique aura of the spirit cards caused the holy flames to freeze in place. Even the speed at which the flames danced became slower, as they were attracted by the aura of the spirit cards. After the first success, Tang Tian's confidence grew, his hand movements became more and more familiar, and the amount of holy flames surging in increased. This directly caused the hollowified energy to become more and more concentrated, and Xian and the rest felt as though they were in a downpour. In the past, Tang Tian was the person he paid close attention to, and he was extremely clear of the major events that happened in the Ursa Major constellation. He had specially investigated the Sword Tempest Cyclone before. When he first saw the wind screen he did not think of it, but when he heard the sword wails inside he immediately thought of what was in front of him. It was a pity that he did not know. Every dot of light was a standard sphere like a transparent ball. If Crane or Ling Su were here, they would be able to recognize it immediately, the Sword Tempest Cyclone. That was the Sword Tempest Cyclone that Tang Tian used to scare everyone half to death in the past. In the Ursa Major constellation, when Tang Tian was able to complete the Sword Tempest Cyclone in the past, he had won countless praises. Of course, what everyone enjoyed the most was Tang Tian's continuous wails and wails for the past few months. The mournful wails and wails would cause anyone who heard it to cry. Bang bang bang. After the painful experience, even after such a long time, even if he was in the state of the god armor, Tang Tian's body could not help but tremble. He was still rejoicing in the misfortune of Xen and the rest, but in the blink of an eye he himself had fallen into the pit. Holy flames surged over from all directions. The spirit chi on the gold rank spirit card attracted them. The spirit chi of the gold rank spirit card was extremely attractive to them. The unique characteristics of the awakened god armor did not help Tang Tian much in understanding a particular law, but in terms of understanding the relationship between laws, and understanding the origin of laws, it had an unparalleled advantage. If he truly did that, it meant that he would have to face the sword auras, the astonishing number of sword auras. Tang Tian's usage of the god armor was not only for fighting. To him, the sensitivity and control of laws to the extreme was not for fighting but for training. Xen was puzzled. It's not painful and there's nothing for me to endure. Tang Tian looked at the scene below him. Until now, everything was still in his control. Sword. In the moment of life and death, a person's potential would be stimulated to the maximum, and that was the easiest time to break through. Although it was extremely dangerous to use battle to nurture battle, but it was a widely recognized concept. But the flash of inspiration in the moment of life and death was all built on perseverance and bitter training. Without the deep accumulation, it was impossible to have a flash of inspiration in the moment of life and death. Xian's body suddenly froze. A sharp pain spread from his thigh to his entire body. He was stunned for a few seconds before he reacted, and let out a heart-wrenching scream. They pierced through the layer of golden light released by the spirit cards and poured down like rain. When the light landed on the spirit generals, they immediately permeated into their bodies, and all of the spirit generals were roused. Xian and Xiao Ran were elated. They could feel their bodies becoming stronger. Without needing his orders, all of the spirit generals were busy receiving more holified energy. But there was too much holified energy, and although they received a lot of it still fell to the ground. Tang Tian, who had his arms wide open, carefully experienced the law threads that were drifting in the air. Suddenly, his eyes lit up with a cold light. He clenched his 10 fingers together and grabbed the air, causing the flickering light auras to appear in his palms. The cruelest thing in the world is this. Tang Tian did not know what was happening outside, and as for the screams and howls below, he did not feel the slightest bit of sympathy. Back then, when I was in a living hell, those assholes were actually listening to me with interest. Hee, now it's my turn to be interested. What shocked everyone even more was that the wind screen vortex was continuously expanding, and an endless stream of holy flames surged in from all directions. The wind screen vortex became bigger and bigger, and the sword cries became clearer and clearer. What if there's an external force? That's too awesome. Endure it for the master to say that. It's such a terrifying word. Xian's stupefied mind only had one thought: asshole, that guy is speaking the truth. The immense pressure caused even Tang Tian, who was in the state of his god armor, to feel the suffocating pressure of MT Tai. His hands did not slow down at all, and his brain was operating at high speeds. What do I do? Chi. Tang Tian did not give up. He was thinking with all his might and carefully recalled what was the most difficult part of handling the holy flames. Which step took up the most time? This question only flashed through his mind for a moment. The pressure he was under was greater than he had expected. The holy flames were hostile towards laws, and he needed to wrap the law threads with a layer of energy, and the layer of energy had to be neither thick nor thin, able to protect the law threads through the outer layer of the holy flames, and not obstruct the law threads from clashing with the emulated laws at the core of the holy flames, causing the two to be destroyed. There were more and more sword auras, to the point that they were even more concentrated than raindrops. Under the guidance of the windscreen, they revolved at high speeds. The sharp whistling sounds became even more gloomy, and became even more terrifying, causing people's scalps to go numb. The sword auras that revolved at high speeds were like a capstan of swords. The sharp sword concept pressed down from all directions, causing Xiao Ran to feel as though she was about to be grinded into pieces. She even felt as though her body was being torn apart. The intense pain pierced through her heart, but before she fainted, the hollowified energy continued to replenish and repair her body. Destroying is also much easier than constructing. The holy flames became sluggish, the emulated law threads appeared, and one of the law threads firmly pierced into their core. The holy flame's structure was extremely stable. The emulated laws and hollowified energy had achieved a miraculous balance. This balance was extremely stable and the two mutually influenced each other. It was almost impossible to directly extract the emulated laws from the holy flames. Alright, Tang Tian is still far away from that, far beyond my reach. But what he was using now was his usual comprehension, his understanding of laws. The gloomy and soul-stirring whistling sound was unable to cover the heart-wrenching screams coming from within, causing Zhou and the rest to be frightened to the point that their faces turned pale. In truth, when Tang Tian had reminded Xian and the rest, Zhou and the rest had already rejoiced in their misfortune. They were extremely clear on how terrifying the master's measure of pain was. But if Xian knew about it, he would definitely crawl out of the windscreen even if he was beaten to death. Tang Tian was fully focused on handling the holy flames. The dispersing hollowified energy slowly floated towards the core of the emulated laws. Suddenly, Tang Tian had a thought. If the hollowified energy transformed into sword auras and struck the holy flames, what would happen? It's really too painful. It's so full that it's painful, it's so satisfying that it's painful, The sword tempest was an idea that struck Tang Tian, because he felt that there were too many holy flames, and thus he was thinking, how could he make better use of them? At that time he thought of the Whirlpool Sword Storm. The Whirlpool Sword Storm's original name was the Whirlpool Sword Spirit Tempering Technique. It was extremely suitable for Xian, Xiao Ran and the rest. Under the state of the god armor, Tang Tian's sensitivity towards laws had reached an unimaginable level, and from that, it could be seen that the awakened god armor that Tang Tian had created was a powerful existence that was not inferior to the holy flames. The rate at which the holy flames surged and became faster and faster, and the holy flames required Tang Tian to handle before they could obtain the hollowified energy. If he did not handle it in time and the holy flames mixed into the sword tempest and were transformed into sword auras, it would be fatal to Xian, Xiao Ran and the rest. There was no end to this cycle. Chapter 930. Tang Tian suddenly had a thought. The previous sword tempest cyclone tempered my martial spirit. Then what is this sword tempest cyclone tempered? But he had never expected that he would actually have to use the sword tempest cyclone again. And the difficulty this time was much higher than the previous time, and it was no longer something that he could just endure. I need to maintain a high level of concentration, control the law threads and strike the exposed emulated law core. According to logic, with such intense pain, Xian would have fainted long ago. But the hollowified energy that was constantly squeezing in healed his body, and the moment the wounds appeared they would be healed. After that, they would crack and heal again and this cycle would repeat endlessly. But I have no other choice. A pity for Wuxia. The old commander suddenly spoke. A pity for the entire army, they were all good soldiers. The two of them were startled, they subconsciously looked at each other and saw the ecstasy in each other's eyes. The place where the sword pierced. Oh my god. SSSSSSSS. Asshole, there was almost a fish that escaped the net. Oh my I need to find a chance to beat little fool up. Oh my, that's great, I did not beat him up. If I'm in a bad mood I will beat little fool up. Alright, in truth Tang Tian did not understand the mess of things on his body. He was suddenly curious and excited, his current body had already been tempered to the extreme, but his soul and the like had always been a headache for him. Because of little fool he was very different from ordinary people in this aspect. The surrounding guards were about to stop him, but the old commander signaled for them to let him pass. An intense pain came from all parts of his body at the same time. Tang Tian felt as though he was being struck by a gigantic wave. He had difficulty breathing, his mind went blank for a moment. This time, other than laughing bitterly, even the calmness of the god armor state could not stop him from laughing bitterly. In that moment, a large amount of holy flames were shattered, and the emulated law core was exposed. Old Tang could not help but sigh. Just watch, Temple is going against the flow, they are seeking their own destruction and no one can save Temple. If God wishes to destroy them he will definitely make them go crazy. For them to be so crazy, it is time for them to die. He didn't know if it was because he had experienced it before. Although the pain this time was also very intense, it wasn't as terrible as he had expected. After a while he felt that he was gradually getting used to this intensity. Only the coldness that almost froze his soul made him feel a little pain. We have to settle this debt properly. Taking a deep breath, Tang Tian's eyes regained their calmness and determination. Since he couldn't avoid it, he might as well bring it on. Tang Tian's hands suddenly spread open again. The surrounding wind curtains suddenly exploded, and countless sword lights burst out like raindrops. He felt that he was really stupid. Just now he felt the pain of eating too much, but he actually laughed. He wanted to cry. He was crying because of his own stupidity. Enduring the pain and numbness all over his body, Tang Tian controlled the laws with both hands and threw them out like a javelin, hitting the emulated law cores that were floating in the holy flames. Idiot! The regiment commander glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. If you haven't done anything wrong, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. We can't cross the Wei Yiguan continent, the old commander said honestly. He even had a bit of energy to think about the reason behind it. Could it be because of the holified energy? The sword auras were formed from the holified energy, and would naturally have the characteristics of the holified energy. Could this be the characteristics of the holified energy? The intense pain caused him to grab onto everything that he could. Unknowingly, he had taken out the undying sword, his hands gripping onto the sword hilt tightly. All Xian could do was scream, and he could not even control his screams. To think that he would actually end up in such a miserable state. The old commander did not know what to say. He was not good at consoling people. In such a situation, it was truly not something that could be achieved by relying on schemes. All famed generals were most afraid of such a situation. Tang Tian had completely forgotten how he had deviated from the topic, but very quickly, a scream came out of his mouth. He felt that he had jinxed himself. Just now, I actually felt that it wasn't painful enough. What's wrong with me? He had never heard of his own father doing anything to his own son's soul, and what made him unable to accept it was that in the old man's heart, little fool was actually the rightful choice. Old Tang's old commander and the rest solemnly buried Wuxia. Of course, they were unable to do any rites on the battlefield. The so-called solemnness was just an additional wooden plaque. On it were the words Wuxia's grave. Now he had experienced it for himself. Childish. Tang Tian had gone through many difficult training, from the earliest 1,000,000 times of fundamental martial techniques, to the fire scythe, ghost claws, grinding iron, felt, etc., etc. Regardless of which training it was definitely not easy. But the one that left the biggest shadow in his heart, the one that he definitely did not want to experience a second time, was the sword tempest cyclone. The old commander was not moved. You are worse than a ghost. The holified energy that was like a waterfall had caused Xian and the rest to feel like they were swimming in the sea. Wrong, not swimming but sinking into the sea. As time passed, Tang Tian could clearly feel the pressure increasing. He knew that he could not drag on any longer. He had to admit that the effects of the Sword Tempest Cyclone's training were outstanding, but even so he definitely did not want to experience it a second time. He did not even have the courage to recall it. He did not even know how he had endured through that period of time. He was not sure if he could endure it a second time. It was rare for him to have such a mentality. One must know that he was definitely not a cowardly person. The Sword Tempest Cyclone was like an inflated balloon, expanding at an astonishing rate. The number of sword auras were also increasing at an astonishing rate. The pain was also increasing at an astonishing rate. The rate of holy flames surging in was increasing, and the number of emulated law cores that Tang Tian needed to destroy was also increasing, and the holified energy was also increasing. But he knew that he could not allow anything to happen to him, and at the same time he bit his tongue. The sweet taste of blood spread in his mouth, causing his mind to wake up, and he knew that it was not the time for him to be in a daze. He felt as if his soul was being twisted and trembling. Old Tang immediately stopped trembling and said, "I forgot that you are a ghost." The pain in his entire body was extremely clear, and it was completely different from the previous time. The pain this time was filled with traces of Yin coldness. The Yin coldness was not dense, but it was extremely penetrative. Tang Tian felt that his entire body was about to freeze, but he knew that the Yin coldness had directly permeated into his soul. His muscles and blood vessels were as good as new, without any signs of being frozen. Tang Tian could not count how many sword auras there were or how many holy flames were destroyed. Tang Tian could not count either. He could only use all his strength to destroy the emulated law cores that appeared in his vision, frantically destroying them. He was like a killing machine that did not know what fatigue was. Master, we have a way to enter the Wei Yi Guan continent. The soldier's clothes were tattered, his face was skinny, his eyes were sunken in, and only his eyes revealed a bone-deep hatred. Thus he screamed even more miserably. The two of them snorted at the same time, the two of them were used to such meaningless quarrels. He was truly feeling the pain of being stuffed. The sword auras felt as though they were slicing his flesh. The pain of being stuffed made him feel as though he could explode at any moment. The inhuman pain was causing him to almost faint. He wished that he could faint, but he did not have the chance to do so. Old Tang was silent. He knew the logic behind it. If not, the savage army would not have been stuck here for so long. But when he heard the answer, he could not conceal his disappointment. He had initially thought that with the old commander's standard he might have a good idea. Tang Tian frantically used his law threads to attack the emulated law cores, as though only by being in a frenzy could he barely focus. He felt his mind going numb, the light in his eyes dimming, but his movements did not slow down. Old Tang suddenly trembled. Why is it a little cold? Countless laws and emulated law cores were destroyed at the same time. Old man, you better not let me find you. Humph humph. He did not notice that the undying sword was like a dried-up sand dune, greedily devouring the hollowified energy. Xin felt as though he was a balloon. The hollowified energy was squeezing in from all parts of his body. That's right, it was squeezing in. At the start they needed to absorb it by themselves, but now they did not want to, but the vast amount of hollowified energy was forcefully squeezing into his body from all directions. But at that moment he could not stop. Even if his soul was trembling in pain, he could not stop. The holy flames that were not dealt with, if they were to slip through and transform into sword auras, it would destroy Xian and the rest. Sigh, he suddenly inhaled a breath of cold air, his expression froze and his face turned pale white. Old Tang turned and asked unwillingly, "Is there no other way?" Bang! Screams came out incessantly. He was unable to control himself. The pain in his body, no, it was the pain in his soul. His mind suddenly surfaced the scene of Clan Elder Seuss struggling in the holy flames, especially the scene of his soul struggling, although it was silent, but anyone who saw that scene would feel the terrifying pain. At this moment, a soldier who had just finished paying his respects walked over with a heavy gait. The hollowified energy was like seawater flowing backwards, trying its best to squeeze into his body. Strand after strand, it was like being pricked by needles. His entire body was in pain, his entire body was in pain, his entire body was in pain. The only thing that comforted him was that the pain was evenly distributed. His gaze looked at the soldiers who were paying their respects to Mu Jixia's grave, and he could not help but sigh. He was an old-fashioned general and had special feelings for the soldiers, and could not bear to see such a scene. How could the soldiers have the spirit of the #1 army under the heavens? Their faces were withered, their eyes were empty as though they were walking corpses. We can only attack now, but the casualties will be huge. The old commander said helplessly, such an impregnable pass, and the one defending it is Jiaya, who is proficient in defense. We will not have a chance. I can bring them to take risks, but I cannot bring them to their deaths. Chapter 931. There had never been a time when he yearned for Tang Tian's victory so much. There had never been a time when he yearned to participate in a battle so much. The citizens of the Saint Continent were citizens of Temple, and their life and death had nothing to do with him, but he was still enraged. Xie Yuan believed that if he could see it clearly, Master Bing would definitely see it clearly. But Master Bing still insisted on doing it, and it was obvious that there was a reason why he had to do it. And in the Southern Alliance, there was only one person who could make Master Bing make such a decision, and that was the leader of the Southern Alliance, Tang Tian. Truly too tragic. Master Tang Tian had disappeared for a period of time, and Master Bing was the one handling the daily work. Master Bing's arrangements were very orderly, and the results were obvious, causing the Southern Alliance's strength to take a qualitative leap. Compared to them, Master Tang Tian did not seem to have any presence. But the true core members of the Southern Alliance were clear that Master Tang Tian's role in the Southern Alliance was irreplaceable. No matter how well Master Bing did, he was still unable to replace Master Tang Tian. Alright, maybe I am thinking too much. Dooku was not too satisfied. Compared to the golden holy flames, the ethereal flames that he was imitating were much cruder. Alright, I can only make do with it for now. After the battle ends, I can slowly research on it. The time for an all-out attack is ripe. He had seen all sorts of cruel things in the Sin domain, but none of them were as terrifying as the scene in front of him right now. He was unable to imagine, how crazy must one be to do such a deranged thing. Furthermore, Xieyuan had a guess in his heart that he did not tell anyone. He suspected that Master Bing had infiltrated the honorable martial continent. He had deduced this from all sorts of clues, for example Master Bing's deployment in the battlefield, which seemed to be intentionally attracting the attention of the honorable martial continent. He had a feeling that if Master Tang Tian was in the honorable martial continent, he would definitely flip the entire honorable martial continent upside down. He then realized that he had underestimated Temple in the past. The depth of Temple's foundation was truly revered. Their eyes flashed with a look of excitement, but their faces maintained their calmness. In the field of laws, he was a true grandmaster, and there were very few people that could earn his respect. Against such a crazy enemy, the slightest bit of carelessness or underestimation could very well lead to one's death. Thinking of this, Xieyuan suddenly felt a little puzzled. Usually he didn't feel that Sir Tang Tian had any sense of existence. Why did he feel that Sir Tang Tian was a good leader? Xieyuan thought about it the last time he felt that Master Bing's emotions were not right, and today he had completely confirmed the guess in his heart. To him the opportunity to attack was not ripe enough. Mo Xen Chiu Su Hua and Go Qing Wendao were suspicious of each other, but they maintained their restraint. Dooku only felt a bone-piercing chill from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. All the hairs on his body stood up. He could not help but shiver. After returning to the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he had always felt that the citizens of the Sacred Saint Galaxy were living a comfortable and happy life, and felt that the citizens of the Sin domain were living in a harsh and cruel environment. However, the scene in front of him shattered this impression. He raised his head and looked at the thick fiery pillar and the flowing holy flames in the sky, as well as the blossoming holy flames floating in the air. His gaze landed on the blossoming holy flames. Every single holy flame was not big. Most of them were the size of a finger, and the largest was not bigger than a fist. But there were too many of them, like the sand in the Ganges River. They were uncountable. The holy flames were a form that existed between laws and energy, but in the end, they did not break away from the boundaries of laws and energy. As they flew, the carefree look on Dooku's face disappeared, and what replaced it was seriousness. Initially he thought that Temple had used holy flames to seal the estuary, but very quickly he realized that the number of holy flames was much more than he had imagined. When he rushed out of the holy flames near the estuary and saw the gigantic fiery pillars that held up the sky, his face completely changed. After the shock and fear, his expression became even more serious. He did not say anything, but instead he supported Master Bing's decision. Although it was not the best time to attack, but Master Tang Tian's importance far outweighed the possible losses. Dooku was overwhelmed with shock. Could they be massacring the city? The creator of the holy flames walked a different path. The changes in laws and energy were astonishing in his hands. He was like a sorcerer of the law domain. He pulled the laws and energy into the shadows, turning the real into the void. These 4 words had reached the pinnacle in his hands. The virtual laws, the void energy, the unique yet ingenious balance. It was like a work of art, releasing an indescribable beauty. Dooku took a deep breath. His heart seemed to have a raging fire burning. Master Tang Tian's importance to the Southern Alliance was without a doubt, and sacrificing a few armies for him was an acceptable loss. But if anything were to happen to the Master, no matter how good their advantage was, it would be useless in the grand scheme of things. Different from the past, Bing did not have a cigarette in his hand. He stood in front of the map with a solemn expression. His gaze swept across the generals in front of him. Most of them had immature and young faces. But it was these youths. They were already veterans in the battlefield with rich battle experience. Their reputations had spread far and wide. In the entire Sacred Saint Galaxy, no one dared to look down on them. Although Master Tang Tian was not around, but his influence on the Southern Alliance had never stopped. Privately, everyone knew that Master Bing was able to use some mysterious method to communicate with Master Tang Tian. But he was ultimately a person who had gained enlightenment on the law domain, and after understanding the theory behind it, he could immediately counter it. With the law domain he was undefeatable. In the domain he was God. A layer of bright red flames surged around his body, but as time passed the bright red flames gradually dimmed, from bright red to faint red, until it was almost colorless. When the flames became colorless, only a thin layer of flames remained, as though they could extinguish at any time, and did not have any temperature. This was the flame that Dooku had imitated based on the holy flame's thoughts. Although the balance was not as exquisite as the holy flame, but in terms of nature there was no difference. Dooku exclaimed in surprise, compared to Tang Tian's unreasonable strength, the holy flame's exquisite and beautiful balance was something that he admired and loved more. The beauty of the holy flame was the product of thousands of refinements, and one could imagine how much effort its creator had put into it. Tang Tian's strength did not lie in his profound understanding of laws, but his ability to use a destructive stance to look down on all laws. Tang Tian did not care about the usage of any law. He used an unreasonable method to grab all the laws in his hands and use them for himself. In the law domain, Tang Tian was like a tyrant. His awakened god armor was the cage of laws. After researching on the holy flame for a long time, Dooku roughly understood what was going on, and his heart was filled with admiration. That's right, anger, an unparalleled anger that surged from the deepest part of his heart. Xianxia threw all of the distracting thoughts out of his mind. He once again focused on the battle and his mind started to work at high speeds. Even when he was at the rear, he had been paying close attention to the movements of the front lines. Although it was not the best time to attack, but it was not as bad as he thought. And from another point of view, the enemy's situation was even worse than them. If they were able to become the straw that broke the camel's back, then on the battlefield, they would most likely cause the honorable martial continent to completely collapse. Suddenly, a terrifying thought flashed past his mind. Don't tell me. All he saw was gold. The holy flames were blocked by the transparent flames around his body. His thoughts were extremely accurate. He did not feel any pressure from the holy flames. Although the void fire around his body did not merge with the holy flames, but the similar aura prevented the holy flames from attacking Dooku. The holy flames viewed the void fire around Dooku as the same species. His calm eyes flashed with a rare look of excitement. The blood in his body was ignited just like that. Dooku looked at the holy flames in a daze. The holy flames are so small, it means that the cultivator's realm is very low and there are so many of them. They also possess an illusory law core and hollowified energy. Xianxia could roughly guess that Master Tang Tian was most likely in a dangerous situation, and Master Bing wanted to use an all-out attack to attract the attention of the honorable martial continent, and relieve the pressure on Master Tang Tian. Temple was currently in an intense upheaval, and the conflict still needed time to ferment. If they were to take action now, it would be easier to force the enemies that already had cracks to unite again. In terms of techniques and realms, Tang Tian could lose, but in a real battle, Dooku would definitely bet on Tang Tian to win without hesitation, even if it was himself. Dooku, who was enveloped in the transparent flames, rushed into the sea of golden holy flames. Dooku flew forward leisurely. The holy flames around him surged endlessly. Dooku's method was not ingenious, it was simple and direct, but he saw through the crux of the matter. The creator of the holy flames obviously did not forget about the existence of the Sin domain. The holy flames targeted both energy and laws, but the creator would never have thought that there would be someone in the world who could decipher the secrets of the holy flames so quickly, and even find its loophole. Even in his dreams, he had never thought that the Saint Continent would have such a grand scene. Temple is truly too extravagant. What exactly happened in the Saint Continent? The previous one was Tang Tian. Southern Alliance High Command Department. Master Bing was an outstanding commander, but not an outstanding leader. The golden holy flames that filled the sky emitted a holy aura, but it made Dooku feel extreme hatred. Dooku increased his speed. He looked around for Tang Tian's figure. He believed that Tang Tian would not be defeated so easily, although the holy flames were outstanding, but Tang Tian felt that he was not a weakling, and Dooku had never seen anyone stronger than Tang Tian. Furthermore, Tang Tian was a genius born to fight. He had the fighting instincts of a wild beast, and a calm and sharp mind during battle. He was the strongest fighting machine. As he continued to fly forward, he felt that something was amiss. No one from Temple came to interrogate him, and the cities had turned into ghost cities without a single soul. Everywhere there were signs of broken walls and high temperature melting. A large number of holy flames floated in the sky. The blossoming golden holy flames were like golden dandelions that stretched endlessly. Chapter 932. There's a situation here. Huoli Ruo shouted excitedly and waved his hands at everyone. All the holy flames nearby were swept up by the sword tempest cyclone, and they did not have to worry about holy flames appearing out of nowhere. Without needing to use energy, Jizai and the rest quickly recovered their strength, and their fighting capabilities were completely restored. Upon seeing Huoli Ruo and the rest, they immediately spread out and maintained their vigilance. Was it caused by Macefield tradings? Huolu Shang felt that he was a joke. He was still feeling melancholy at such a time. He bowed to Chia. This subordinate will bring my people over. Wait a minute. Ever since he was young, this point had been deeply imprinted in his mind, but the patriarch's actions had completely toppled his impression of him. But when they arrived at temple, it was empty. All they saw was the holy flames flying towards the fiery pillar near temple. Countless of holy flames entered the fiery pillar. The size of the fiery pillar did not change, but Huolu Shang could sense a terrifying aura brewing inside the fiery pillar. He had a premonition that the 14 monsters were far more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The fiery pillar that they saw previously in the face of the gigantic cyclone was as quiet as a gentleman. Even the speed at which it devoured everything was on a completely different level. Temple's fiery pillar was like a well-educated gentleman, slowly eating the food on the table. But the cyclone in front of them was like a wild beast that had been released from a cage. It devoured everything. Its stomach was like a bottomless pit that could never be filled. After Huolu Shang made the decision, he immediately felt relaxed. He looked at the cyclone. He knew that the only thing that could deal with this monster was another monster. He also knew that Temple would not accept their surrender, and they would definitely not surrender to Temple. After massacring the entire Saint Continent, why would they care about killing a few more captives? If I keep them, what if this matter is leaked? Huolu Shang was shocked. He initially thought that Senior Xen was the leader, but never expected that Senior Xen was actually the beautiful lady's subordinate. What surprised him even more was that the leader of this group of people was actually this woman's husband. I will go too. Snow City? Huolu Shang was startled, but then he quivered and became extremely excited. He did not say anything and just quietly walked forward. But no one came to ask them to surrender, as though Temple's people were all asleep. Sandra raised his head blankly. His pupils suddenly contracted and his wrinkled face instantly turned pale. Suddenly, a terrifying thought flashed through his mind. Could the Great Elder and the others be inside these fire pillars? At this stage, the prestigious families no longer had any meaning. Even if they defeated Temple, they did not have the ability to rule over the honorable Martial Continent. Oh my God! Huoli Ruo stared blankly at the terrifying monster in front of him. A few days ago they were still watching how no one from Temple responded, and how Seuss came to Snow City alone, and the beautiful feeling of victory was still fresh in their minds. However, all of a sudden they fell from heaven to hell. It was so fast that they couldn't even react. All of their advantages were swept away and they were sealed in the Saint Continent. The Great Elder's madness made them feel true fear. Go. Chia nodded in agreement. Huolu Shang had no other choice, and without hesitation he kowtowed again. We are willing. I actually forgot about Macefield tradings, Huolu Shang kept on reflecting. Regardless of what relationship they had in the past, everyone who was still alive in the Saint Continent were allies. Previously, Chia had addressed Tang Tian as her husband with a stern tone, but when she heard Huolu Shang using the same term, her heart surged with embarrassment, and the back of her neck started to turn red. But her face did not reveal any signs of it and spoke with a straight face. He is inside the storm. I will not hide it from you. My husband is not from the honorable Martial Continent. Alright, that's all I have to say. You have to consider the pros and cons. You only have one chance and I will not wait for it. A roar came out from the side. A military general whose eyes were about to pop out of their sockets howled as he attacked the nearest fiery pillar, but all of his attacks were like clay oxen entering the ocean, and did not even cause a ripple. Before anyone could react, the holy flames surged forth from all directions, surrounding the military general so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. Huolu Shang probed. I wonder if little brother-in-law's husband is here? Which family does he belong to? Even massacring the citizens of an entire continent, something that Temple has committed, they will definitely not let them live. Everything that happened in the Saint Continent will forever be a secret that no one will ever know. They will become the executioners, and the crime of massacring the Saint Continent will bring shame to their descendants. Alright, there is no need to worry about their descendants being shamed. Temple will not let them live. He stopped in his position and looked around. They did not speak. The two of them could not help but look at each other again. The lady boss is not an ordinary person either. Along with the anger was fear, a deep fear. Huo Shang regained his senses. He immediately noticed a few figures rushing out of the city, and upon closer inspection he realized that it was truly Macefield Tradings. He did not see Senior Exon, but he saw Melissa and the Iron Mask Army. He also noticed that although Melissa and the rest were rushing out of Snow City, but it was not chaotic and they would frequently turn to look at the storm in the sky. In just a few days, Sadra seemed to have aged more than 10 years. His originally white hair had turned completely white, and the wrinkles on his face had increased. His face no longer had the usual calmness, only a deep sense of lethargy. Even his back looked crooked and old. Huo Shang felt complicated. If Temple wins, all of us will die, even our families will not be able to escape, and at that time the Honorable Martial Continent will be unrecognizable. If we win, the Honorable Martial Continent will no longer exist. Temple will be completely erased. Who can take over the Honorable Martial Continent? What happened to Temple? Everyone's faces were filled with bewilderment. Leave this place. Temple. That's the direction of Temple. Mo Gu exclaimed. With Huoli Rua's reminder, he immediately noticed the place that he had overlooked. He slapped his forehead in frustration. How can I not notice such an obvious thing? I have truly lost my mind. Let's go back first. He clenched his teeth and forced himself to remain calm. Just as they were about to return to the camp, Huoli Rua suddenly saw something from the corner of his eyes. He was startled and subconsciously raised his head. What he saw, other than holy flames and holy flames, there was nothing else. In front of them was a desolate plain. It was flat and unobstructed. When Huoli Rua followed the patriarch back to receive his family, he was still in a daze. He never thought that the patriarch would be so decisive. Without any hesitation, he threw away all his pride and honor and became someone else's subordinate. That's right, can the situation be any worse than it is now? His gaze swept across the people around him. All of their faces were filled with despair and fear. Even the fearless Huoli Rua's face was as white as paper, and his fingers were trembling. Huoli Rua knew that the patriarch was referring to Master Sadra and the rest. Thinking about that, Huo Shang felt his entire body brimming with strength. That's right, Macefield Tradings has the unfathomable Senior Exaeon, and the powerful Iron Mask Army. Who knows, they might have a way? Suddenly someone shouted out, "Look! In the sky!" But their lives could be ended, but the pain of their souls being burned was unavoidable. What is it? The citizens of the Saint Continent are food for Temple. Food prepared for the 14 monsters. This caused everyone to panic. The torment of waiting for death was enough to cause them to collapse. The devouring of their souls made dying a peaceful death an extravagant hope. The rest were roused and immediately followed that direction. Huo Shang followed Huoli Rua's finger. His eyes immediately lit up. That's right, a portion of the holy flames did not float towards Temple, but towards another direction. Is it finally here? The past few days had been like a nightmare. Seeing the soul struggling frantically in the holy flames, everyone could feel the pain and agony contained within the silent and frenzied movements. The morale in the camp was extremely low. They did not doubt that as long as Temple sent someone out to ask them to surrender, more than half of them would immediately change sides. He was truly agitated at such a time. Any change was a good thing for them. The situation was already at its worst, and even if there was a bad change, the result would not be too bad. But what if it is a good change? The powerful Honorable Martial Continent has fallen to such a state in the blink of an eye. I am also one of the sinners. Huo Shang was in a daze. His entire body seemed to have been sucked dry. Such a terrifying enemy, how can we win? He counted. There were a total of 14 fiery pillars that were continuously devouring the holy flames. It was a spectacular and shocking scene. Huo Shang raised his head in a stupefied manner. He looked at the endless holy flames surging towards them. The fear in his heart had reached an unprecedented level. The first thought in his mind was to escape. He forcefully suppressed the impulse in his heart. The entire Saint Continent is sealed. Where can I escape to? He stared at the 14 fiery pillars that were like 14 bottomless mouths that were devouring everything. Huo Lushang knew that it was useless to say anything, even he himself felt the same way. That's right, isn't this the direction of Snow City? I am Huo Lushang, representing the Huo family. I request for senior's protection. Huo Lushang knelt on the ground and said word by word. He became extremely serious. The entire Huo family will believe in senior. Anyways, let's go take a look. That's right, it's better than this. Huo Li Ruo's heart moved. He raised his head and carefully observed the holy flames in front of him. Huo Lushang could only rely on Macefield tradings. He knew that he did not have any leeway to bargain, because he did not have any bargaining chips. He had no other choice. If the great clan elder truly won, it would be a disaster for the honorable martial continent. To their families it would be a calamity. He noticed that Huo Li Ruo's expression was strange, and with a thought he knew that Huo Li Ruo had discovered something and asked without hesitation, "What's the situation?" Everyone was startled and kept quiet. But his voice was trembling, revealing the excitement in his heart, causing the others to react and immediately ran over. Huo Li Ruo was at a loss, but after a moment he reacted and laughed bitterly. "Even at this time, are you still not giving up? Are you still hoping for luck? Do you think that there will be any changes?" He was, after all, a hero of a region. He knew that despair and fear would only hasten their deaths at this time. How can a great clan elder that can slaughter the entire Saint Continent not know how to eliminate the roots? Compared to what was happening in the Saint Continent, it was not even worth mentioning. When they rushed out of Snow City, an incomparably shocking scene appeared in front of them. All of them stopped in their tracks and stared blankly at the gigantic figure in Snow City. Their mouths were wide open, and they had already forgotten to speak. Huo Lushang stabilized his emotions and signaled for the rest to stay, while he brought Huo Li Ruo forward. Let's go take a look," he said without hesitation, and with that he took the lead and headed towards the direction of the holy flames. Walking closer, Huo Lushang bowed respectfully and asked, "May I ask, is Senior Exon inside the storm?" The entire Snow City was enveloped in the shadow of the gigantic figure, and what made people even more fearful was that the storm was still expanding at an astonishing speed. A bone-chilling cold intent spread throughout his body. No one would support the great clan elder, the deranged man. As though he knew what Huo Li Ruo was thinking, Huo Lushang looked ahead and without turning his head, "Are you surprised? That way we can survive and the Huo family can survive. They will also make the right choice." In the direction of temple. Everyone's hearts trembled. They all stood up and looked into the distance. It was beyond the limits of Huo Lushang's understanding, but he knew that grooming them would only result in monsters, true monsters. He looked around with a strange expression. He seemed to have discovered something, but this time he was sure that he was not seeing things. Huo Lushang and the rest were already far away from him, but he did not care about them and looked around. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them and started to retreat. Zhou saw Huo Li Ruo's eyes lighting up and immediately tensed up, preparing to make a move. The excitement in everyone's heart gradually cooled down, and fear started to surface. Everyone's heart sank and the morale that had just been raised dropped. This direction. Huo Li Ruo was unsure. It seems to be Snow City. Temple was not far from where they were, but it was definitely not near either, as there were a few cities in between. Regardless of where the other party came from, whether they were from the honorable martial continent or not, so what? Temple was already the target of everyone. If Temple won, no one would be able to live. Temple would definitely not allow the matters that happened in the Saint Continent to be exposed. If not, even if the great clan elder won, he would not be able to obtain the support of the citizens. People like Fu Jingji, who were proficient in bootlicking, had already started to reflect on themselves, if they had neglected the lady boss previously. Huo Lushang remained calm. Even if there were 14 more monsters inside the fiery pillars, the situation would not be too bad. Previously, the fiery pillars had released a terrifying aura, allowing him to know how terrifying the monsters inside were. Maybe it was even more terrifying than he thought, because he did not know what would happen with so many holy flames, with so many people's power concentrated on the 14 targets. Everyone retreated to a distance of 10 kilometers before stopping. Even though they were so far away, the fiery pillars were still so majestic and they were still so small. From there they could clearly see the entire picture. The vast sea of holy flames surged towards the 14 gigantic fiery pillars like moths to a flame. The scene caused their scalps to go numb. As they walked, they quickly realized that there were more and more holy flames floating towards them. Everyone became more and more shocked. The amount of holy flames moving in the air was not inferior to what they had seen in temple. In his vision, the dense golden holy flames floating in the air seemed to be attracted by something, and were all moving towards one direction. In the past few days, it was the first time the holy flames had such a strange phenomenon. Huo Lushang and Fu Jing raised their arms, indicating that they had no ill intentions. Every day there would be people being devoured by the holy flames, and they had to watch their comrades die in front of them without being able to do anything. It was a form of torture to anyone. Now, whoever was touched by the holy flames would have their comrades help them end their lives. Looking at the golden torrent, even at such a distance, Huo Lushang could hear their surging whistles. If it happened once, it was possible that he was seeing things, but for it to happen twice, it was definitely not a mistake. Very quickly, the Macefield Trading's people in front also noticed their presence and became cautious. A gigantic storm enveloped the sky above Snow City. The storm looked like a monster's mouth. Surging holy flames surged in from all directions, transforming into a golden torrent that flowed into the storm. To raise the entire Saint Continent and to gather all the power of the Saint Continent on 14 targets, what kind of monster would they produce? He did not know what to say and could only remain silent. Huo Lushang recalled that Macefield Tradings was still in Snow City, and at that time they were anxious to meet up with the main army and left Snow City, but Macefield Tradings did not leave with them. The rest followed quietly. No one had the mood to speak. Everyone knew that when the monsters inside the fiery pillars came out, it would be the end. Ji Zhe and Fu Jingji looked at each other. They understood each other's intentions. As long as the other party made any strange movements, they would attack without hesitation. Although Huo Lushang and the rest looked to be in a terrible state and would not attack them, but what if? Master was still inside the storm, and if he was affected, young Miss Chia needed their protection and they felt the pressure on their shoulders. Huo Lushang's face changed. The monsters inside the fiery pillars could control the holy flames around them. We have lost. Sadra's aged voice came out. He had regained his calm, and seeing everyone's gaze on him, he laughed bitterly. Can our situation be any worse than it is now? His words resonated with everyone's hearts, and a few of them immediately agreed. Beside him, Huo Lushang and the rest all had bitter looks on their faces. In the past few days, they had truly experienced what it meant to pass a day like a year. Many of their faces were still filled with confusion. They did not understand why they had fallen to such a state. Tang Tian was not around, and the only one who had the qualifications to take charge of the situation was Chia Shanghai. She stepped out and said slowly, "That's right. The Huo family is a rich and powerful family. I will go take a look." Huo Lushang said, "Whether they are dead or alive, it is better to give them a quick death." Snow City. When Huo Lushang heard that, he stopped in his tracks. He turned and looked at Huo Li Ruo, who was already a distance away from them. He finally understood why the great clan elder would not let the citizens go. The holy flames floating in the sky were not for them, nor were they for sealing the Saint Continent, but for the 14 fiery pillars, or more accurately, for the 14 monsters. Could it be that temple is nurturing more than 14 monsters? When that thought popped out, it immediately took root in everyone's mind. That's right, temple is so big and has such a deep foundation. 14 monsters is too little. With temple's habits, they would not find it strange if every city had 14. The holy flames floating in the sky were all moving towards temple's direction. Although they were not moving very fast, they were indeed moving, and they were heading towards the sanctum. What I can see, other than holy flames, there are more holy flames. Could it be holy flames? Suddenly Huo Lushang's eyes turned red. An unprecedented rage surged in his chest. How many lives are there? So many innocent people. They are just ordinary citizens. Huo Lushang was overwhelmed with shock. What exactly is inside the fiery pillars? His eyes lit up. He finally found the place that attracted his attention. That's right, holy flames. In his vision, there was actually a portion of holy flames floating towards another direction. Snow City, Macefield Tradings. There's a situation. He could not help but shout out. The Saint Continent was unable to fly, so they could only run with all their might. He would never forget this city in his life. It was in that city that they fell from heaven to hell. But it was also this city that, when they were on the verge of collapsing from despair, suddenly gave them a glimmer of hope. And they are humans, how can we turn them into food? Huoli Ruo did not laugh at the patriarch, he was equally excited. He pointed to the holy flames in the sky. Holy flames! A portion of the holy flames are floating towards that direction. Everything that they had witnessed had completely shattered the last bit of hope in their hearts. They followed behind Huolu Shang and ran towards temple. They carefully avoided the holy flames along the way, and did not stop for even half a second. Jizai and Fu Jingji were shocked. From the start, Miss Chia had never displayed anything special. They only knew that the master and Miss Chia were childhood sweethearts and had deep feelings for each other. Until today, when Miss Chia's words were powerful and resonant, displaying the demeanor of a great master. The camp was extremely lifeless. Everyone looked as though they had lost their souls. Their eyes were devoid of life. Chia Shengguan interrupted him and spoke with a stern voice. Exen is my subordinate. Other than my husband, no one else can be the ruler. They are all my husband's subordinates. You should consider this carefully. Huolu Shang was the first to react. He sprinted towards Huoli Ruo and asked excitedly, "What's going on?" He shook his head and continued to move forward, but after a while he suddenly stopped. The gold holy flames had instantly ignited his body, and before he could even scream, he was incinerated into ashes. Huolu Shang was unable to describe his emotions. He was like a traveler who was about to die of thirst in the desert, and suddenly found an oasis in front of him. Huolu Shang, who had always thought that he was able to keep his composure, could not help but tear up. There is no place to hide. Chapter 933. Duke's expression was calm. The space around him turned sluggish, and no matter how ferocious the holy flames were, they were unable to get within 30 m of him. It wasn't that Sandra and the others didn't know this, but compared to the destruction of their families, losing their pride was nothing. At the very least, the clan could continue to exist. But what was truly hurt was their morale and confidence. The 14 fiery pillars of the temple started to crystallize at the bottom, and the golden fiery pillars started to condense into golden crystals. The 14 terrifying auras were completely different from the ones they had sensed a few days ago. Each aura had become even more berserk. The monster in the fire pillar had a slow and powerful heartbeat, like a heavy drum. Every beat caused the air to tremble. Even though they were far away, they still felt restless. Sandra had no choice. As expected by Huolu Shang, Sadra and the rest made the same decision. Especially when Sandra and the others saw the monstrous storm, they did not have any other thoughts. But this time all of their beliefs were completely shattered. In front of the crazed Great Elder, they didn't have any power to retaliate. They were as weak as children. The casualties of the various families continued to increase, but they discovered that they were powerless to change anything. They had nowhere to run. The fear of waiting for death nibbled away at their courage. Their spirit, chi and spirit disappeared little by little along with the loss of hope. Wait a minute. How terrifying. Every single one of them had the same feeling. As long as they got close to temple, they would feel their hearts palpitate. Furthermore, the holy flame attack was so violent, yet it did not cause any damage to him. Sandra and the rest felt that their worldview had been turned upside down. The people who had popped up one after another were so powerful that they seemed inhuman. And once these spirit generals completed their transformation, their bodies would undergo a qualitative change, and at that time they would no longer be able to enter the fiery pillar, and would instead be unable to borrow the power of the fiery pillar. These spirit generals were about to complete their transformation. The gigantic wave of holy flames swallowed Duka's figure. Duka's clear voice resonated out from the holy flames, and even the explosions that filled the sky could not cover his voice. The great clan elder's voice came out from the pillar of fire, and the surging holy flames in the sky suddenly became agitated. Duka felt as though he was standing on top of a raging storm. The wind and rain swayed him. The surrounding holy flames pounced at him frantically, as though they wanted to tear him into pieces. Everyone's hearts were in their throats, and Sandra and the rest personally went to the holy cathedral. Duke's spirit was shaken. Although the opponent was strong, Tang Tian was definitely not someone who would sit and wait for death. Seeing so many holy flames surging towards Tang Tian, Duke's heart was moved. Could it be that Tang Tian is making use of these holy flames as well? Their situation made it impossible for them to have any other thoughts. The alliance of the big clans only existed in name and was in shambles. Every clan had suffered heavy casualties, at least 30% of them. Even with such a large number of casualties, the fact that the families had not collapsed was because they were well trained. Of course, the most important thing was that there was no way out. In such a despairing place, leaving the family would only lead to faster death. Temple treats its people like pigs and dogs, rearing and slaughtering them to nourish themselves. Your sins are too great, even death cannot atone for your sins. Duke never thought that in this world, there would actually be such a simple and crude method of building up a strong martial artist. The only thing that gave them a clue was the words, Sin Domain Remnants. But does the Sin Domain have such a powerful person? This was really too powerful, and he looked very young. The great clan elder sensed Dooku's threat and was surprised. His eyes flashed. So it's the Sin Domain Remnants. The holy flames that filled the sky transformed into a 300 tall wave that struck towards Dooku with an earth-shattering force, causing the entire sky to tremble. In the past, the reason why Sadra and the rest were unhappy with their current situation and dared to fight with Temple for power was because of their confidence, the ambition of a prestigious family. They believed that they were the true masters of the honorable martial continent, and believed that they had the qualifications to rule over the honorable martial continent alongside Temple. Countless of gold threads that looked like blood vessels in a human body converged onto a spirit general's body from all parts of the fiery pillar. Dooku then realized, spirit generals, so the strange flames were prepared for these spirit generals. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible, and his heart was filled with curiosity. Tang Tian had always been a person who did not play by the rules, and he was not surprised at all by what he came up with. Alright, if he doesn't come up with something strange, then Dooku will find it strange. It was just that the environment was disadvantageous to him, but he was not alone. He quickly calmed down, although the opponent was powerful, but he had absolute confidence in himself. That's right, even with his law domain, the opponent could still threaten him, but at the same time, no matter how vast the opponent's power was, his law domain could still threaten the opponent. Sadra and the rest were completely dumbstruck. They did not recognize Dooku, but they saw that he was actually able to ignore the restrictions and fly in the sky, and was even able to fight with the great clan elder without being at a disadvantage. Time continued to pass, and the atmosphere in Snow City became more and more oppressive. The soldiers who were in charge of observing Temple's 14 fiery pillars came back to report that there were some changes to them. With that, he ignored Dooku, but the speed at which he absorbed the holy flames increased greatly. He immediately increased his speed, stepping on the holy flames as though he was gliding on water. His speed was extremely fast. The terrifying holy flames did not harm him at all. Everyone prayed to the gigantic storm, hoping that their monster would be able to win. Dooku's face remained gloomy. He could sense the power of the spirit generals, which was a power that he had never seen before. There were no profound and unfathomable realms, only the accumulation of power. To him, there was no technique involved in the accumulation of power, but the immense amount of power was forcefully causing the spirit generals to transform time and time again. They finally knew that they were just mortals and the war was between monsters. At that moment, they no longer had the time to lament their stupidity. Their strength meant that they could only be side characters in the war, and all of their ambitions were built upon their strength. When Sadra and the rest saw the numb faces of their people reigniting with hope, the pain in their hearts lessened. All of the holy flames around Snow City were sucked dry by the Sword Tempest cyclone, and the soldiers who were tortured to the point of breaking down fell asleep. It was the ultimate accumulation of power, tyrannical beyond compare. They had chosen to rely on Tang Tian, which meant that they had completely given up on the pride of being the highest family in the food chain, and from then on, they were thrown into the mortal world. They did not know that in the sky behind them, Dooku was currently observing the fiery pillars with a stern expression. As he had imitated the holy flames, he had deceived the restrictions in the sky and was able to fly. Finally, I can sleep peacefully. They suddenly reacted. Wasn't the Sin Domain martial artist flying towards Snow City? Dooku squinted his eyes without making a sound, but his heart was in a perilous state. He finally understood why Temple needed so many holy flames. He could even sense that the 14 fiery pillars had established some sort of connection with the other fiery pillars through the fiery screen in the sky, allowing them to continuously absorb the holy flames floating around the Saint Continent. Sadra and the rest had a premonition that the monsters inside the fiery pillars had already completed their transformation, and could come out at any time. Such a heavy casualty was a huge blow to any family. Everyone looked at each other, then immediately turned and ran back towards Snow City. It's Tangtian. Dooku looked at the fiery pillars deeply, then turned and headed towards another direction. He could sense a portion of the holy flames surging towards another direction. Furthermore, he could sense a familiar aura from that direction. Just the pure power was enough to threaten his laws. This caused them to feel panic. The Sword Tempest Cyclone was still expanding without any signs of stopping. If the Great Clan Elder and the rest were to come out first, they would be in a dangerous situation, and from the looks of it, the situation was developing in a direction that they did not want to see. Dooku could sense the terrifying aura contained within the fiery pillars. The holy flames were unable to block his gaze. His gaze was like a sword that pierced through the fiery pillars, and he could see everything inside clearly. This ambition did not come out of nowhere, nor was it obtained from the accumulation of wealth, but it was the foundation that their ancestors used their blood and hands to create. It was the continuous accumulation of victories over the generations, the accumulation of countless of glory, and the accumulation of time and months to form their conviction as a prestigious family. That's right, the spirit generals inside every fiery pillar emitted an aura that resembled gigantic beasts that crawled out from the prehistoric era. Even from afar he could sense the ferocious and terrifying auras coming from the spirit generals. They did not know how to restrain their auras, and every single spirit general's body seemed to be formed from a compressed ocean of holy flames. The undulations produced by the massive amount of energy that was compressed to the extreme could not be concealed at all. He could clearly see that the space around the spirit generals inside the fiery pillars was distorted, and the laws were extremely chaotic. Dooku was shocked. The opponent has discovered me. Just at that moment, the spirit general inside the most central fiery pillar suddenly opened his eyes. The cold gaze that seemed to have substance shot towards Dooku. The great clan elder's face darkened. He knew that he could not do anything to Dooku and sneered, "You're just trying to talk big. The winner is the king, the loser is the bandit. Let's see if you can still smile when the time comes." Every single spirit general inside could threaten him. He had gained enlightenment on laws to the extreme, and possessed an unparalleled power in his own domain, but the spirit general's body contained a power that was even more vast than what he could use. Anything that reached the extreme could change many things. So powerful. Dooku's figure appeared once again. He was like a boulder in a mountain stream. The holy flames were like water that flowed past him. He was unharmed, his expression was normal, but his tone was sonorous and powerful. Dooku also knew that he was unable to move or stop the opponent. The entire fiery pillars of the Saint Continent and the fiery screen in the sky were one. If he attacked any one of the fiery pillars, it meant that he had to face all of them and he had no chance of winning. Chapter 934. For a few days, yes. Fu Jingji glanced at Dooku. He was secretly worried for Master Dooku. Why is Master Dooku only concerned about spirit generals? Why can't he grasp the main point? He couldn't help but remind, they are all Miss Chia's subordinates and Miss Chia is Sir's fiancée. I was wondering which girl was so beautiful and elegant. So it's the boss's wife. The boss was really lucky. Look, he had made a fortune. We are also blessed. With the lady boss's leadership, we will definitely take fewer detours. We will definitely be invincible and destroy all those who stand in our way. Xiaodu, the moment I saw Lady Boss, I felt that she was a kindred spirit. Now that they knew that their master had such a powerful expert under him, their morale was greatly boosted, and the hope in their hearts increased a little. The people below who had already broken down, all knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. They begged the Grand Elder in the sky, crying, "In the eyes of Sadra and the rest, whoever became the master of the honorable martial continent was better than Temple." Besides, it was closely related to their life and death. Be it holy flames or spirit generals, they were all illusory objects. But when the two were combined and developed to the extreme, it would return to the void and enter the real. His body was not illusory but real. This body was suffused with a faint golden color, which added a bit of majesty and holiness to him. Every movement he made, the surging power in his body was like a vast ocean. Facing the holy flame, the first thing they did was to suffer heavy casualties. Sin Domain's #1 stared blankly at the storm above Snow City, his mouth wide open, his expression sluggish. "Spirit General? We have Spirit Generals too? They are all Spirit Generals?" Dooku immediately became excited. Could it be that Master has the same idea as Temple? Treacherous. It was too treacherous. What kind of nonsense was this? It was simply too endearing. Alas, I used to be such an upright young man, but I've been corrupted by the adults. Seeing the middle-aged man calling out little Du Wu, Jizai and Fu Jingji felt a chill down their spines, and goosebumps appeared on their skin. If the aristocratic alliance suffered heavy casualties, then the newly rising prestigious sects were in a state of distress. The armies in their hands were not as well trained as the prestigious family's alliance, and their cohesiveness was also lacking. The great elder was cautious by nature, and the sudden appearance of Duke made him feel uneasy. Although this trace of uneasiness was fleeting, he still decided to increase his bargaining chips. Alright, after seeing this spectacular scene that could elevate his soul, he was not worried at all. That's right, if this fellow doesn't stir up some trouble, is he still Lord Tang Tian? Previously, Dooku was a little afraid of the great elder and the others, but now he didn't feel that way at all. Anyone who saw a storm that almost covered half of the sky would have their nerves thickened. Fu Jingji, who was mocking Dooku for his lack of experience, was instantly dumbstruck. It was not only him, even Jizai, who was initially filled with respect by the side, froze. At this moment he felt that he was a god. You are guilty. Your piety has not withstood the test of the holy temple. The light is everywhere, how can you not know? This is a small punishment for you. But in the end, you are still citizens of Temple, and Temple has decided to give you a chance to turn over a new leaf. The great elder berated, causing everyone's ears to ring, but at this time no one cared about anything else. In the dazzling golden light, the first elder's smile became even colder. Hey, you are Sin Domain's #1 man. Master is inside? He looked at Jizai in a daze. He extended his finger out and pointed weakly at the storm. He intentionally raised his voice when he said, Miss Chia, you are still too young, you can tell with one look that you have no experience. Young man, do you know what wind is the strongest? Oh. If you offend Master Tang Tian, Master will at most beat you up. But if you offend the lady boss, you will die without a trace and you will not even know who did it. Inside the dazzling light aura, the great clan elder's dignified and solemn voice came out, resonating in the sky. Master's fiancé. Any type of power when trained to the extreme would be extremely powerful, furthermore it was laws. Duke's eyes suddenly widened as though he was rolling and crawling down from the sky. After a long while he turned his neck, which sounded like a rusty joint, causing Jizai and the rest to be worried that Duke's neck would break. On the contrary, Chia's face was flushed red from Duke's continuous call of Lady Boss. The great clan elder had reason to be surprised. A powerful martial artist who had stepped into the highest realm of laws and touched upon the domain of laws was something that only existed in legends. The gigantic wind gap above the storm was comparable to the largest volcano he had ever seen. The golden flood that filled the sky caused him to think of a word: whale devouring. Alright, that word is not quite right, it feels like a flood that has burst a dam. But so what if I can see it? Sin Domain did not have any spirit generals. The great clan elder appeared out of nowhere. He floated high up in the sky, his entire body releasing a golden light that no one could look at. The terrifying pressure enveloped the entire place, making him look like a god, causing people to involuntarily worship him. Everyone else was speechless, but after thinking about it, it was not up to them to think about such matters. Regardless of where the master came from, they had no other choice. The inhumane temple had already become the public enemy of the entire honorable martial continent, and if temple were to regain control, the scene would cause even the most courageous person to tremble in fear. They were extremely respectful towards Duke's God Armor Army. Fu Jingji spoke honestly. Xian and Xiaoman are both spirit generals. They are Miss Chia's subordinates, and Miss Chia is Master's fiancé. 120 spirit generals. He suddenly felt that the ferocious aura from the 14 fiery pillars had been swept away. He finally understood why the size of the storm was so large, and why the speed at which it devoured the holy flames was so terrifying. The remaining people looked at the sky blankly, their faces were numb and their expressions were ashen. Could it be that Boss and Lady Boss came from the Sin Domain? If not, why would the powerful martial artists of the Sin Domain work for them? There are over 100 spirit generals here. Dooku raised his head and looked at the holy flames in the sky, his mouth twitching. Thinking about the temple's fiery pillars, he still felt that it was a shocking scene. The efficiency was a complete mess. Now he only wanted to say, Little do I am a country bumpkin who has never seen the world. 120? Spirit generals? Dooku felt that his brain was not enough and stuttered. As expected of the number one man of the Sin domain, look at his eyesight, how powerful is that? Zhou nodded his head. Yes, Master has already been in there for a few days along with Exen, Xiaoman and the rest. He had initially planned to launch a surprise attack on Snow City, but now, before the other spirit generals had completed their transformation, he did not plan to take the risk. He could sense that something was being nurtured in Snow City, and a large amount of holy flames were surging towards Snow City. He did not expect the other party to be able to absorb the holy flames. Ordinary people would not be able to understand the secret of the holy flames, but the man just now should be able to understand it and was even able to imitate it. When Sadra and the rest rushed over while gasping for breath, they saw the scene. Sadra, Huolu Shang and the rest looked at each other. They understood the meaning in each other's eyes. They had personally witnessed Dooku's demeanor, and was not at a disadvantage when facing the great clan elder. But for such a powerful martial artist to be so respectful in front of young Miss Chia, it seemed to be a little flattering. The boss and the lady boss's background was unfathomable. When Fu Jingji saw Dooku, he was overjoyed. A man's name was like a tree's shadow, and as the number one man of the Sin domain, Dooku held an extremely high prestige in the hearts of the people of the Sin domain. And seeing that Dooku was alone and was able to fly in the sky, it was truly the number one man of the Sin domain. But very quickly his face darkened. He thought about the Sin domain survivor that he had met previously, and the other party's strength had surprised him. If he had not completed his transformation, he would not have been able to fight against him. The great clan elder could tell that the other party trained in laws. But the depth of his realm was unfathomable. Like that, to have two more experts, not bad, not bad. If the old man in the temple's fiery pillar knows about this, will he cry? Thinking about that, the great clan elder could not help but reveal a smile. My plan is so closely linked, how can it be so easily broken? Inside the fiery pillar in the center of temple, the great clan elder slowly opened his eyes. At the moment, only 40% of the people were still alive. 30% of the prestigious alliances were dead, while the various families were still able to maintain their organization. All of the new prestigious families had lost 60% of their members, and all of the families were in chaos. Fu Jingji spoke respectfully. Yes, they are all spirit generals and their soldiers are all spirit generals as well, a total of 120 of them. Dooku's face was filled with passion as though he had seen a long-lost relative. The people below who had long collapsed were all crying tears of joy. This is your last chance. Only by stepping through this door of repentance can you obtain salvation. Dooku was in a good mood. The 14 powerful auras had impacted him greatly. He lowered his head to look at his own palms, which were initially translucent, but had completely congealed. Other than the faint gold color, it was no different from a living person's palm. Even the warmth of flesh was the same. His body was the same, completely congealed as though it was alive. Although the other party had stepped into the law domain, but the current Saint Continent was still his home ground. The 500 over pillars of punishment were like 500 nails, firmly nailed into every corner of the Saint Continent, allowing him to firmly grasp the situation. Remember, every single person only has one chance. Who are Xian and Xiaoran? Dooku, who had relaxed, asked casually. These two names are somewhat unfamiliar. Are they new? Since I need to grasp more bargaining chips, I can only let them take advantage of me. The great clan elder looked at the holy flames in the sky and sneered. Xiao Du. The other party is an enemy and not a friend. There is no possibility of reconciliation between Sin domain and temple. When the great clan elder finished speaking, the survivors below immediately surged towards the doors of repentance. The great clan elder waved his hand, and the nearby pillars of punishment released a golden flame flow, which flew to the front of the great clan elder and transformed into a golden light door. Don't think too much, we shouldn't be thinking about such things. Mo Gu suddenly spoke up.